What football ground are you thinking of when someone says this?
Really tough place to go. Difficult place to go. Such a tough place to go.
It's a tough place to go at the moment.
It was a really difficult place to go, always.
But what are the toughest places to go, really? We've scoured the planet to find out. Forget a cold, wet Tuesday night in Stoke. Try playing in a blizzard 220 miles inside the Arctic Circle at the world's northernmost professional club. When Chelsea lost at Tromsø in Norway in the 97-98 Cup Winners' Cup, a massive snowstorm hit at half-time. These two boys and their brooms were absolutely no match for it. We're staying in Scandinavia for Scotland's toughest away day on a windswept cliff in the Faroe Islands. In Euro 2000 qualifying, Craig Brown's men were taken to fishing village Toftir. Kevin Gallagher called the pitch a cowfield and the wind like Pittodrie on a bad day. The Faroe Islands part-timers equalised in stoppage time, leading to these absolute scenes, and still one of Scotland's most embarrassing results.
Daft little ground, silly game.
But away trips don't come any tougher than a lung-busting schlep up the Andes to face Bolivia in La Paz. But now the Bolivians have taken home advantage to another level. The country's highest city, El Alto, 4,100 metres above sea level. Grass doesn't even grow up here. Bolivia have not lost here yet. The longest unbeaten run in any professional league ever belongs to Red Star Belgrade, or Crvena Zvezda if you must. They've gone 7 years without defeat at the Rajko Mitic in Serbia's Superliga. Their fans are pretty intimidating as well, but they're not as loud as this mob. Galatasaray's Ali Sami Yen Stadium's officially the loudest in world football. In a derby with Fenerbahce, Galatasaray fans set a Guinness World Record of 131 decibels. That's louder than Motorhead, and pretty tough to carry out your manager's instructions when you can't even hear them. However, our most intimidating away day is in Wales, where cameras can't enter and players can't leave. HMP Prescoed. This prison team was briefly kicked out the Gwent League over concerns about young opposition having to go in there. Now that's a tough place to go.
Early June 1939, Germany, always a tough place to go to.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Jim White, Alex Crook and Steve Bruce, and we are live on talkSPORT. So a remarkable chain of events at Celtic as Brendan Rodgers resigns with Martin O'Neill installed as interim boss. O'Neill to the rescue, but for how long? The man himself joins us exclusively very shortly. Meantime, divisive, misleading and self-serving. Was Celtic owner Dermot Desmond right to go in publicly on Brendan Rodgers? Also today, has it been a rebound month for Amorim? Is it going to get worse before it gets better for Sheffield Wednesday? And amidst a remarkable rise at Bournemouth, we speak to the man credited with saving the football club over a decade ago. Former chairman Jeff Mostyn joins us in studio. It's a big one this morning. Jim White, Alex Crook and Steve Bruce, and we are live on talkSPORT.
100% engagement. Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
Now, Steve Bruce, I have to warn you now. Martin O'Neill was sitting in that very seat yesterday. And later on in the day, he was interim boss at Celtic. Who knows what's going to happen to you, Steve, later on today?
Well, I've got my telephone there waiting, but I doubt it's going to ring, Jim. After the last 6 months I've had, I doubt it's going to ring.
Good morning. Great to see you. Great to see you looking so well.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, Steve, it's great having you on board. Alex, what a show. The next 3 hours. So much going on, and we're right across it here at talkSPORT. It was a remarkable chain of events yesterday. I heard you live last night on the sports bar, educating those guys with what actually did happen with Brendan Rodgers going and O'Neill coming in. We'll hear from Martin in a second, but a crazy chain of events.
Absolutely incredible, Jim. I was actually sat in a pub quiz when I saw your messages on Twitter suggesting that there was a change of foot, and within minutes, Celtic had confirmed the bombshell news that Brendan Rodgers had resigned and Martin O'Neill, at the grand old age of 73, was going back in as interim manager. It is absolutely incredible. Not just Celtic, but when you look at Rangers as well this season, those two clubs are delivering so many talking points. Meanwhile, Hearts under Tony Bloom and Derek McInnes are just rolling along quite nicely.
Yeah, it proves to me, Steve, when you guys get the call, you find it very hard to say no.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And certainly with Martin's case, considering he's been out 6 years, but probably at this particular moment, the club needs it. He's adored by the supporters, of course.
Yeah.
And they remember what he did. So maybe it just puts a little bit of water on burning coal, shall we say, and he'll do fantastically well, I'm sure of that.
I'm pretty sure he will. So how long is he going to be there for? What's he going to do in his time there, and how did it all happen? Let's get to it. Martin, as you know, was a guest of ours. He's a regular on this show with Simon and myself. Yesterday it was Martin Keown. But now that changes somewhat because he has answered the call and he goes up to take over on an interim basis at Celtic following the departure yesterday of Brendan Rodgers. Just moments ago, before we came on air, I spoke to Martin as he prepared to board a flight to head to Glasgow. And I said, 20 years on, you're returning to Celtic. How did it all come about?
I got a call late afternoon, early evening yesterday from Celtic, from Dermot Desmond, and Dermot asking me would I step in because Brendan had resigned from the football club. It's obviously the kind of shock news, really, as much as anything else. Shocked me as well too, but just to step into the breach and just do it on a short-term basis until a permanent manager is appointed.
Did you hesitate for one moment before you said yes, or did you say yes right away?
Well, that's a very good point, Jim. A very good point. Like everything else, I took a gasp of breath and thought, is this real or surreal? And so it's difficult, really, to turn down somebody who gave you the job in the first place. You know, when he had really some great options way back 25 years ago. So from that viewpoint, maybe by the time that I pulled myself off the floor, I probably thought then maybe I should do it.
What would you say to some of those who this morning are saying, well, this is Martin O'Neill, all these years on, this is his heart ruling his head?
Who knows? Absolutely. This is it's a short term. Celtic, obviously, I think, probably are stunned with the news that Brendan left, and as a consequence, you know, they maybe might be, obviously are seeking a permanent manager, and so this is like a short term. Well, I'm not going to say a fix, but it's certainly a short term fit. Anyway, whether it's a fix or not, it's another thing.
I mean, you're in interim charge. I wonder what that means. Does interim mean interim to you?
Yeah, interim does mean that to me. Absolutely. It's really as simple as that. There, Celtic are looking for. They are looking for. I would have assumed a young coach coming in now, who has a proven ability and would be wanting to pull the club forward now from their position as it stands. That's how I would view it. And I suppose if I was a Celtic fan, that's how I would absolutely see it.
I mean, I wonder if interim means a couple of games or until the end of the season.
Well, do you know, Jim, I've always said to you on your program that I did with you yesterday, manager has to win football matches, and that's no different. And at Celtic, it's always been the case. So you have to try and win some football matches. And if we can do that, if we can win some football matches and give us just give us a bit of a buying time, as it were, until a new man is appointed.
What do you think of the start, Martin? Your homecoming is against Falkirk tomorrow night, and then the small matter of a League Cup semi-final at Hampden against Rangers.
Well, if I'd seen the fixture list, I possibly then wouldn't have taken it, So that's supposed to be a joke, then. I don't hear you laughing. But anyway.
I am laughing.
But yeah, listen, it is what it is, and it's come as a bit of a shock, which I think you can hear from my voice as much as anything else. But listen, yeah, let's go, and I'm working with Sean Maloney. Sean and I go back years and years ago when he was a young player with me, but he has experience in management now, and he's worked as well too with lots of really good coaches, and as I said, he himself has been a manager. So I will obviously need help, and Sean is there to give it to me, and so hopefully the rest of the backroom staff.
It comes over loud and clear what Celtic means to you. Do you want to share that with the Celtic fans on talkSPORT this morning? What this club means to Martin O'Neill?
Naturally, I had a super time there. It was an absolute privilege to have managed them before. My time had gone. I think I said that to you long time ago. Jim, I can't emphasise this enough. This is a short term until a permanent manager is appointed, and I think that Celtic will be searching around, as I said to you, for that young manager with proven ability, who's got a bit of a track record. I imagine all of those particular things, and I just sit in there and keep the seat warm for him.
Henrik Larsson's too old to bring back, isn't he?
I might call him. I might just call him and ask him, has he been staying in the gym for the last couple of years? So yeah, you never know.
Martin O'Neill speaking exclusively to this show just before he headed north to Glasgow. There is a Hearts fan. I've got to read it out. Good morning, guys. Morning, Steve, Alex. Russell Martin is sacked. Brendan Rodgers quits. The old firm crumbling under the pressure of the Jambos. Hearts, in other words. So Hearts fans not so slow to jump on this. Steve, how often did Martin in that chat, Steve Bruce is with Alex, myself, how often did he say interim and short term? The more he emphasises it, I think the more he thinks, you know what?
I
might be there for a while.
Yeah, let's win tomorrow night. They play Falkirk.
Yeah.
And then if they beat Rangers at the weekend, then who knows? But look, I think he's obviously answered the call, and everybody knows, a bit like myself, Martin, they enjoy the game. We enjoy the game so much. The managerial side, I don't think Martin's done it for 5-6 years. But at this particular moment, he's a good fitter. He's a really, really good fit, really experienced man. Obviously adores the club and loves the club and had a great, great time there before. So, as I've just said before, it seems a good fit at this particular moment. He has stressed interim. How long that interim could it be?
Well, yeah.
How long could it be? But what it does give them, it gives them time to get the appointment right. Of course it does.
Yeah, but he's been out for a while though, Steve. Is there an element of ring rust when you guys go back in after a spell?
I think there's always a little bit of ring rust in something. I would have thought a little bit. He'll found it a bit strange because he hasn't done it for so long. But let's be brutally honest. He's been a fantastic manager over the years. So he's got help, and Sean, who'll give him all the energy on the training ground, and of course the backroom staff. And I'm sure he'll absolutely take it like duck to water, like he normally has done.
Lots of talk, lots of reaction to the chat there. He's only spoken to us this morning, Alex, before he flies up there. But the dust isn't going to settle on this for a long time yet. And when we come back the other side of the break, Alex, we will start talking about what actually happened with Brendan Rodgers. And that statement last night from the owner, Dermot Desmond. Now, we'll get into that in more detail. But that was a bombshell that dropped last night.
He certainly didn't pull any punches, did he? Talking about Brendan being self-serving and talking about a toxic atmosphere around the dressing room. Basically accused Brendan Rodgers of being a liar when it came to recruitment and it came to the fact that Brendan was alluding to not being offered a new contract. Incredible when Brendan has his say back. This could be a real war of words between former manager and the owner up there. But what I would say just quickly on Martin O'Neill, it is a very romantic appointment. And listen, Martin is still, in my view, got a lot to offer the game. He's an incredibly astute football tactician. But it's a very different Celtic to the one that he left behind. If you read between the lines why Brendan has decided to fall on his sword, and it's very rare, isn't it, for managers to walk away from lucrative contracts so early in the season. They've sold key players, Nicholas Kuhn for £16.5 million. They sold Adam Eder to Swansea. He scored 22 goals for Celtic last season. They only spent £10 million in the summer. Now, there's plenty of money in the bank.
Yeah.
And I keep being told the reason for that is because they foresaw what was going to happen at Rangers. They realised they weren't really going to be much of a threat to their status as champions, but they didn't account for what Hearts are doing. So I can understand Brendan's frustrations.
Sure.
Equally, I think there's an argument to be made about some of the things that Dermot Desmond was saying. I told you a couple of weeks ago that Brendan wouldn't renew his contract at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And that's never an easy situation in a dressing room if you know the manager is going to up sticks.
Well, Alex, the messages and the calls are coming in. We want to hear from Celtic fans, of course, this morning with Steve and Alex in studio with me. There's a message from Rob. That statement, and the one from Dermot Desmond, is one of the most damning from any football club in Scottish history. Very interested to see if Brendan Rodgers will respond. So are we, Rob. Very keen to see if Brendan Rodgers will respond. Martin O'Neill has spoken to only us this morning, and now he's heading north. When we come back, we're going to get more reaction to this, and we'll get into the guts of that statement from Dermot Desmond last night. And he did not miss Brendan Rodgers. That is for sure. It's Jim White, Steve Bruce and Alex Crook live in talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes. Tuesday morning, October the 28th, the day Martin O'Neill went back to Celtic. TJ hasn't missed here. Good morning to you, TJ. All Martin O'Neill has done publicly for 2 years, Jim, is decimate Rangers. Even yesterday on your show. I cannot wait to absolutely ruin Martin's weekend on Sunday. Bring it on. The Rangers fans rolling up their sleeves and getting ready for this one. Of course, Rangers and Celtic lock horns, if you like, if I can say that, at Hampden on Sunday. It's a League Cup semi-final. So Martin will be thrust right into it. Steve Bruce is alongside Alex Crook here in studio. And Alex, you spoke about this last night on the Sports Bar. Celtic owner Dermot Desmond. He called out Brendan Rodgers in a statement as divisive, misleading and self-serving when he spoke last night. Dermot Desmond says this: in June, both Michael Nicholson, the chief executive, and I expressed to Brendan that we were keen to offer him a new contract extension to reaffirm the club's full backing and long-term commitment to him. He said he would need to think about it and revert. Yet, in subsequent press conferences, Brendan implied that the club had made no commitment to offer him a contract. That was simply untrue. And Dermot Desmond goes on to say, regrettably, his words and actions since then have been divisive, misleading and self-serving. They've contributed to a toxic atmosphere around the club and fueled hostility towards members of the executive team and the board. Some of the abuse directed at them and their families has been entirely unwarranted and unacceptable. I wonder, Steve, what Brendan thinks this morning with the dust settling and those words ringing in his ears.
Well, I'm sure he's going to find it very, very difficult. Of course. In all of this, there's obviously been a huge breakdown between the two of them, and unfortunately, it's led to this morning where I don't think any of us are really, really surprised, are we, that this has probably happened? You know, because it's unfortunately been brewing. You could say from the start of the season, really. I think on Brendan's behalf, it looks as if feels as if he's been let down by the lack of signings, although coming to the statement that Brendan was in charge of it all. So until we hear Brendan's side of it, of course, then, you know, what makes the relationship fall apart is the communication between two, and it happens, doesn't it? And it looks as if on a big, huge scale here, at a big, huge, massive club like Celtic, unfortunately, there's been a split between the two of them.
I mean, you've fallen out with owners in the past, Steve.
Of course. And
do you expect the owner to go public?
I don't think I've ever seen an owner go as public as that.
No.
As damning as that, I have to say.
I mean, Simon went fairly public.
Oh, yeah, Simon's very, very capable. Simon is very, very capable of going public very, very quickly.
But did he do it at the time, or did he do it years later?
Oh, no, he did it. Listen, we've spoke a long time, me and Simon, about this whole situation.
He put you on gardening leave, didn't he?
I put me on gardening leave, and yeah, made it very, very difficult for me. But listen, we were both young, and we were both hot-headed. These two guys, Dermot Desmond and Brendan, are both really, really experienced in what they've done. I was young and silly, maybe, and so was Simon, if I'm going to be brutally honest. And
Simon joins us in a few moments.
Oh, is he coming on the show?
He's going to come on the show, of course. He wouldn't miss this opportunity for anything. But I could hear it in the tone of your voice last night, Alex. Even you were surprised when you heard just how tough the statement was from Dermot Desmond.
Yeah, I think it's unprecedented for an owner to go in quite so two-footed. And I guess we're going to find out now, as Brendan Rodgers genuinely walked away from the remainder of his contract, or has he walked away with a payoff? Because if it's the latter, we're probably not going to hear too much of a response from Brendan Rodgers, because as you know, Steve, he'll have signed a confidentiality.
By the way, looking at that stuff, I don't think there's any payout.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have thought.
I think you can forget that.
So if there isn't a payout, it will be very interesting to see how Brendan responds. But I think the writing's been on the wall probably since Celtic crashed out at the Champions League. Obviously, very disappointing.
Yeah.
They only then started to bring players in. I think their budget was sort of based around, or what they were willing to spend was based around Champions League progress or not. They've got plenty of money in the bank, as I've already mentioned, because they knew that Rangers were going to underperform. They didn't spend it, and I think that's the source of his frustration.
This, Alex, is maybe an example of what Dermot Desmond is referring to. Back in August, when discussing his future at Celtic, Brendan Rodgers joked that he'd never walk mid-season like he did in his first spell.
Absolutely no chance. No chance. We've done that one before. It didn't go down well. So, no, listen, I said from the first day, and there's no hidden messages and there's no this and that. I said I'd be here for 3 years. I'm here for 3 years.
A week later, Celtic went out to Kairat in Kazakhstan in the Champions League qualifiers, and amidst fan unhappiness with the board, Brendan Rodgers suggested Celtic need to choose what kind of club they want to be going forward.
It's very frustrating. As I said, we all know where we want to get to. We showed last year, like I say, the strides that I felt we took, but you have to build on that. The last thing you want to do in football is manufacture your own stress. You don't. That's what you don't want to be doing. But I think all we can do now is what we have to look at where we're at as a football club, and like I say, decide what way we want to go. And but at this moment in time, we can still have a very good season.
So, with board protests continuing over a perceived lack of investment in the summer, Rodgers last week, following defeat at Dens Park Dundee, called his team a Honda Civic.
We lost a lot of firepower, a lot of goals out in the team, and there's no way you'll go into a race and be given the keys to a Honda Civic, and as you take off, say, I want you to drive it like a Ferrari. It's not going to happen. So until something changes, I have to find the solutions, because, like I said, goals, speed, everything has come out of the team, and we need to find a way to be better.
Interestingly, that comment from Rodgers didn't go down too well with Martin O'Neill.
I don't know why he said that. In all honesty, I don't. He'll have his reasons for it, but
he's playing to the gallery, is he?
You just wouldn't do that, and. I mean, this is obviously a direct comment, totally directed at the board for not supporting him. And I even if it's, you wouldn't do it, you wouldn't publicly say this, because it doesn't go down well. And remarkably, believe it or not, after a while, it doesn't really go down with the supporters either.
See, Bruce, is Martin O'Neill right on that?
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, look, I think we've all watched Brendan, and we've just seen it over the clips now, reminded of what's gone on over the last 2-3 months. And I think the big thing, well, like I said before, of going out to Europe is give everybody a kick up the backside and giving them a sickener. And since they've obviously lost, Brendan feels as if having the players that they let go in the summer, especially the ones at the top end of the pitch, who are the most important ones in my opinion, they haven't really replaced them. Now, here is the problem. Has he had the funds to go and do what he needs to do, and we're not going to hear it until we hear from Brendan really again, are we? And because, as we've said, it's pretty damning, the statement on him, and but we can just hear now with the interviews of the frustration of Brendan of what he's been dealt with.
Yes. Well, as we heard, the Celtic owner, Dermot Desmond, called out Brendan Rodgers as divisive, misleading and self-serving. But as an owner, is it the right thing to do to go as heavy as that publicly? We'll speak to a former owner next. Who could that be? Oh yes, Simon Jordan will join us live on this show.
Corinthian Casuals are a team in the Combined Counties League Premier Division South. Despite that, they're one of the most important clubs in world football. Here's why. The club was formed in 1939 as the result of a merger between Corinthians FC and Casuals FC. Now, Corinthians FC were founded in the late 1800s when the FA's top brass were absolutely sick of getting pumped by Scotland every time they played them. As a result, Nicholas Lane Jackson set up an amateur side which would bring in the best players who could all play for the national side. And it worked. It wasn't long before England were dominating the international fixtures they played, and it was largely down to Corinthians. In fact, in 1894 and 1895, they played consecutive games where Corinthians provided the entire England 11. But the thing is, the players refused to play professional football. They didn't believe in it. They wanted to spread the values of sportsmanship, competition, and played for the love of the game. It also helped most of the players were Oxbridge graduates who didn't need the money, but instead of entering league and cup competitions, they played exhibition football and toured the world, bringing the beautiful game with them. Think of it like the Harlem Globetrotters of football, and it was this which spread the game throughout the world and made it so popular. Most famously, in 1910, they travelled to Brazil, and the locals in Sao Paulo were so impressed they started their own team under the same name. Yes, the same Corinthians who won the FIFA Club World Cup in 2021, one of the biggest clubs in Brazil.
Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday morning, Tuesday, October the 28th. It's Jim White, and it's Alex Crook, and it's Steve Bruce, and we are live on talkSPORT. A lot to get through this morning. We're also live with the man I'm normally on with, because in a morning like this, such a seismic reaction to Brendan Rodgers quitting Celtic, and in comes Martin O'Neill, a man this man knows well. We all know him, we love him. Good morning, Simon. How are you?
Morning. What do you want? I'm busy.
Simon Jordan, Steve Bruce alongside me here, Alex Crook alongside me. You're trying to get some sunshine in Spain, but we're disrupting that. Listen, what do you make of the last few hours? And late last night, as I said, and now you know, of course you do, Simon.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Brendan Rodgers resigns from Celtic, and back goes Martin O'Neill on an interim basis.
Well, I think that's interesting for Martin. I spoke to Martin about it this morning. I think it's an opportunity. Martin wanted to get back into football management, and he's going back to a place that he knows particularly well. I was very interested to read Dermot Desmond's statement. It actually made me laugh when I first read it, because I thought, chapeau, Dermot, well done. Because too many times these bloody managers, including Steve Bruce, get to say what they want, when they want, how they want, and there is no recourse. And there's always this, of course, I will wear this hat, there's always this idea that people are not being given what they want, they haven't been given the support, the popular narrative is played out because the manager gets the voice and the owners don't. And well done to Dermot. He must have been particularly irritated to have taken that step, because he hasn't missed, has he?
No, well,
he hasn't left.
Simon, it's bordering on character assassination, isn't it? Dermot Desmond called Brendan divisive, misleading, self-serving.
Well, it's only character assassination if it doesn't happen to be fair and true. And I had said, as you know, about a week ago, after Brendan had come out talking about Honda Civics and that sort of nonsense, that, you know, if I was in Dermot's shoes, I would have given him a smack, metaphorically. And here's the smack, and here it is, because he's not going to allow Brendan to see the narrative in amongst the fans that are not happy for obvious reasons about the performance of the team, but also not happy with their lack of qualification to the Champions League, which, by the way, was entirely on Brendan and his team, because whether they were given more support or not was incidental. They had a good enough team to beat that pub side, and Brendan has been deflecting for some time now, and Brendan is doing what Brendan does, making it about Brendan, making it about an opportunity for him. He's a very good manager, no one doubts that, but he was given an opportunity to go back to Celtic, and I think they deserve better. And so Dermot has been, I think, disappointed by Brendan's resignation, but has now filled him in. Sorry, but that's about what he's done, isn't he?
Yeah. Here's Alex, Simon.
Simon, I remember a few weeks ago you sort of raised your eyebrows when I suggested that Brendan would leave at the end of the season and that he would be on a few Premier League lists. If you were a Premier League owner now, the fact he's walked out on Celtic not once but twice, albeit in different circumstances, would that put you off hiring him?
Well, first and foremost, you've got to look at the capabilities of the manager, knowing that managers are always going to leave, depending what size of club you are. If you're a big football club, if he's going to a Liverpool, he's not going to leave. Liverpool are going to leave him. If he's going to a mid-sized football club like a Leicester that he did first time round, if he did really well, he would leave Leicester. So it depends what kind of club owner I am, what club I've got. Brendan is a football manager that's very capable of achieving outcomes. We've seen it. He won the FA Cup for Leicester. He did a decent job at Liverpool, which Klopp then took and kicked on from. And so you can't just say because he's done something previously that ultimately he's going to do it again. But if someone shows you what they are, there's a distinct possibility you should believe them, right? Brendan is about opportunities for Brendan. But there's nothing wrong with being in the Brendan Rodgers business if you're Brendan Rodgers. It's something about it if you're a football club owner, you go, right, what am I getting? Am I getting a football manager? Do I get him for life? Nobody gets anybody for life anyway. So you look at it and go, what can he do for me in the here and now? And if the here and now is Brendan Rodgers can save me from a relegation battle if I was a relegation-threatened football club, then I'd take that view. Or maybe I'd tier the contract to reflect the nature of the animal that I was employing.
Do you think more owners should come out and speak as robustly as Dermot Desmond has done?
Well, there's something to be said about expressing your views. You know my view on that, Jim. I will express them.
Yeah.
But there's also something to be said about silence, because silence speaks volumes. In this instance, because of the challenges that are surrounding Celtic, because we've now got a situation where there is a fox in the hen house with hearts potentially dividing the old firm, and there is a toxicity around Celtic at this moment in time, and there was some repositioning of the responsibility clearly at the board's door. I make him right. I have to say, when I read it in a sort of not a malevolent but a sort of Machiavellian way, I burst out laughing. I said, well done, Dermot. Get in there, son.
Yeah, but Simon, I think you would enjoy that, wouldn't you? You would enjoed reading that last night, wouldn't you? Chuckling away to yourself. I can just imagine it, yeah. There's no doubt about one thing, though. Brendan is a very, very talented manager. And what maybe ticks him and makes him the manager of the year is the way he is. No
doubt.
His way has worked. He's a very, very talented manager, and of course, the pair of them have had a major fallout for what we.
Brucey,
yes,
but Brucey, you know as well as I do, there are certain managers that will play in a certain way, right? So, like, you've got a guy, Kieran McKenna, at Ipswich.
Yes.
Now, he was sought after by everybody, and he decided to stay where the opportunity was afforded him. And he took him into the Premier League, stayed in the Premier League when everybody and their mother was after him. He stayed with them after they got relegated, even though his currency is high. You've had Thomas Frank do it. There's a time to leave a football club, right?
Yeah, of course.
And everyone understands it, right? So if you've done your job and you've been there and you've earned the fact to leave, like Thomas Frank's done at Brentford, no one has a problem with it. But when Brendan left in the first instance, walked out when it suited him, and then Celtic brought him back, right, gave him a chance, and he did a job for them. But if Brendan didn't want to be there anymore, he didn't like the circumstances, he should have resigned before he dumped all over it.
The counter-argument, though, Simon, why didn't Dermot Desmond come out before this and make a statement saying he was unhappy with his manager? Why did he wait until he quit and then publicly assassinate him? Presumably, he's been unhappy with him for the last few weeks and months since they went out of the Champions League.
Alex, you can read the statement. He said he had a conversation with the manager and cleared up Brendan's desire to misrepresent circumstances, because what he's done in that statement, of course, it's one person's version of events. What you've had is Brendan's version of events, right? Lovely, fantastic, all about Brendan and what he hasn't got. What you've got is the other side of the equation now, which is Dermot Desmond telling you what actually happened from his side of the equation.
But why didn't he sack him then?
Well, maybe he didn't want to, because he's not saying he's unhappy with Brendan. He's saying he's unhappy with what Brendan has subsequently said.
Yeah.
So if Brendan had kept his trap shut and been a bit more respectful and mindful of the opportunity that he was afforded, or said to Dermot Desmond, if I don't get what I want at the beginning of the season, I think I've earned the right to ask for more. And if I don't get what I want, then there's a distinct possibility I don't want to work here. No one's got a problem with that. Dermot wouldn't have a problem. They'd go, well, fair enough. Okay, I've got a choice. I either give you half of what you want or some of what you want, or I ignore that and accept the fact you're going to resign. What Dermot is doing is going, I don't think so, son. I don't think you get to tee off at me and the people around me in the media. And then I've come to your house, I've sat there, I've listened to your griping and your bitching and whining, and we've gone through it, and we found out that actually what you're saying isn't a version of events that reflects what you and I have discussed. So Dermot will obviously felt that's been put to bed, and then Brendan's gone ahead and resigned. So Dermot is now going, oh, right, lovely. So we've had the chat, we've cleared it up, we've got to the bottom line of where we think we are. We all understand one another, and you go resign after, by the way, saying all of these things that you've said. So whilst it's bold, and Dermot Desmond isn't one of those. He's a very forthright man, as I'm sure Martin O'Neill will attest to in the amount of time he was given to make a decision about whether he wanted to go back there or not. Right? But the fact of the matter is that Dermot keeps his counsel. The top guys keep their counsel most of the time. We've seen Jim Ratcliffe recently come out and turn around, much to everybody's amazement. This fella's getting as much time as he needs. If he needs another 3 years, that's what he's getting.
True.
So maybe there's a change in culture. Maybe owners recognise that the entertainment business that sport is now becoming requires them as impresarios to communicate more, both good and bad.
Simon, I would say, I spoke with Martin O'Neill before we came on air, and he very kindly, gave us a chat which we can use on this show. He's extremely loyal to us and loves being on with your good self. What in the time he's been on with us, we've got to know him pretty well, haven't we, Simon? What are Celtic getting here? And he's been cute, Martin. Is interim?
Well, I mean, I spoke to him this morning. I said, I hope he's very grateful for all the advice I've given him over the last year on the media, and he's going to deploy it properly.
Simon, you've got him back into work. Is that what you're claiming now? Is it?
That's my view. That's my view, Brucey.
Of course.
But I think what they've got is a very knowledgeable, very enthusiastic, very motivated, very talented manager. And I think he feels like he's going home to some extent. He'll probably have told you that himself. I think that Martin wanted to get back in football management. What this looks like, who knows? It could be weeks, it could be months, it could be longer, depending upon the job he's going to do. But I think that Martin's on a win-win situation here. He goes in there, it doesn't get any better. It's not his fault. It's someone else's team. If he goes in there and starts to win, then Martin's going to enjoy himself, because football management at its best is a wonderful opportunity, and he loves it. He wanted to do it. He's wiser and older, and he's been sitting back watching it for some time. I think they'll get a little bit lift if they go and do a job on Rangers on the weekend.
Yeah,
it's lift off a little bit, isn't there?
Listen, are you standing anywhere near other holiday makers? I mean, they must be fed up listening to you droning on.
No, actually, I'm not, Jimbo. I was minding my own business, driving up the motorway, and I'm in the middle of somewhere. No, I was going to say it isn't rude there, but I'm in the middle of absolutely nowhere, standing on the side of a carrot terrier talking to you clowns.
Simon, as always, have a good break, mate, and we shall see you again
You're
soon.
welcome. Look after Mr. Bruce for me.
We will do indeed.
Thanks, Simon. Lovely to speak to you again.
See you guys.
Simon, thank you very much indeed. Steve is with me, so too is Alex. We heard from Simon there. Celtic fans, in the middle of all of this, Martin O'Neill is heading back as we speak. He's spoken exclusively to us this morning. Brendan Rodgers has gone. You've heard the statement from Dermot Desmond, describing Rodgers as divisive, misleading and self-serving. What has happened in the last 12, 24 hours? What is your take on it? And is Martin the right man to get you back on track to get a win against Falkirk tomorrow night and then beat your enemy, Rangers, on Sunday? Give us a call, 03717 22 3344 or 81089.
took a gasp of breath and thought, is this real or surreal? And so it's difficult really to turn down somebody who gave you the job in the first place. You know, when he had really some great options away back 25 years ago. So from that viewpoint, maybe by the time that I pulled myself off the floor, I probably thought then maybe I should do it.
That was Martin O'Neill speaking to us just a short time ago as he boarded a flight to head to Glasgow and take over where it all went so well for him in the past. Back at Celtic, this time on an interim basis. And if you're watching there on your TV, on Android, Google TV, even Prime Video, you would see Martin O'Neill standing there with the Scottish Premiership trophy, which is something he very much would love to do again. I know that for a fact. But there's a small matter of Hearts leading the way at the top of the Scottish Premiership as it stands. We've asked you, what do you think? You've heard from all sides. We haven't heard from Brendan Rodgers. That's actually factually incorrect from me. We haven't heard from Brendan yet. But we have heard from Celtic. We have heard from Dermot Desmond at the top of the house. And he hasn't minced his words, calling out Brendan Rodgers as divisive, misleading and self-serving in a statement last night. Now we've heard from Martin O'Neill as he heads north. Steve Bruce is alongside Alex Crook, but we want to hear from you. And Celtic fans, you are calling us in huge numbers. 03717 223344. Kevin, good morning. Steve is with me. So too is Alex. What on earth is your take on all of this?
Good morning, guys. I'd just like to start with saying I'm 100% backing Dermot Desmond on this, and I'm surprised he was allowed to resign, because I would have sacked him long before he got a chance to resign. It's been the worst Celtic team in a couple of decades recently. Brendan's defeat attitude in his interviews is absolutely shocking for a Celtic manager. He just blames everyone but himself. He's playing players out of position. There's a guy in that midfield team, I will name him, Negrin. He's not a midfielder. He's playing him in there in the team. The whole midfield's off balance. You can see that. I'm not saying I'm a football manager, but years of watching football, you can see clearly, you don't know if you're a football manager, you can clearly see things that are wrong in the park.
Right. So it hasn't come soon enough from your point of view. What about Martin going back on an interim basis, Kevin?
Yeah, well, Martin did a great job last time. He's an experienced guy. He'll not come out and say anything stupid in interviews, and he'll be doing what's best for Celtic, not himself. So I'm delighted he's back on an interim basis.
Good points, Kevin. Thank you for that. Mark, good morning. Do you agree with the previous caller, Kevin, there?
Good morning, gentlemen. I agree to an extent. I do think the time is right for Brendan to go. I think the football has been insipid, toothless. His interviews, as the gentleman said there, have been very pointed and disgraceful at times, quite frankly. I don't 100% believe the statement from Dermot Desmond. I think the truth will lie somewhere in the middle. I do think, however, you don't mess with billionaires. Historically, I can't think of many who you could trifle with and get away with it. These guys are usually pretty ruthless. That's why they get to where they are. I do believe that Martin O'Neill is the right choice for now. He's a steadying hand. He will galvanise the support. I'm 46, people my age. Martin O'Neill gave us the best years of our time supporting Celtic. We all remember the 90s. The 90s were a disaster.
Yeah, but Mark, Brendan won you the league last season. So what's changed?
Well, Brendan, I mean, it's hard to... Brendan has won us silverware, both in his first period and obviously the second period. But where has been the challenge, Jim? Let's be honest. There has been very little challenge. Brendan, when the chips are down and things get tough, I don't think he's the man. I think he's a man who will cut and run. I think when the chips get going and you know, things get difficult, he lacks the tactical nous. He lacks the motivation qualities to galvanise a team and to get them.
His record would suggest otherwise, wouldn't it? This is a guy who won the FA Cup at Leicester, obviously was very successful first time round at Celtic, has won the league again on his return. Are you not being hoodwinked here by this statement? Because the fact that the Celtic didn't invest properly in the summer surely is a massive factor in why they're underachieving this season.
Yes, it is, but we should have had enough to beat Kairat Almaty Alex, quite frankly, and that was a sackable offence on its own. I would have sacked them the day after that game because they, as Simon rightly said, they are a pub team and they're getting spanked left, right and centre by everyone in the Champions League. They were awful. But we were even worse. We couldn't even create a chance against them, never mind beat them. And over 2 games, it was probably the worst performance from a Celtic team since the dark days of Carl Muggleton and Jerry Craney.
I'm obviously listening to your comments and taking them all on board. And I remember watching Celtic not so long ago play Bayern Munich and absolutely take them on and nearly beat them. So really, what's changed tactically? I don't think you can criticise Brendan for tactically because arguably it's his biggest strength. You know, tactically he usually gets it right. And as I've said, I'm asking you as a Celtic fan now, where's it sort of gone wrong from that huge performance that they put in against the really, really good German team in Bayern Munich, which was only less than 10 months ago, was it? And all of a sudden it's fallen apart like it has done today.
You make a great point, Stephen. In honesty, I don't know where it's gone wrong. All I can suggest is that the background noises amongst the boardroom, amongst Dermot and ultimately Brendan, there've obviously been lots of infighting. Brendan is someone who likes to spit the dummy. I think that's happened. I think he's possibly went, well,
he's not alone in that with managers, though, is he? We're all of us managers, like spit the dummy out and blame somebody. We all have to find somebody to blame,
Mark,
don't
listen,
we?
You're a regular in this show, and I thank you for picking up the phone this morning and joining us. Thank you for your points. Andy, I'm going to finish with you. What do you want to say? You've been waiting patiently. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Andy. What do you make of the overnight events?
I'm kind of glad, to be honest. I've seen it coming since maybe end of last season when results were rubbish, the way we were playing. But I don't completely blame Brendan. I think the board have got a big part to play in it as well. But I'm really glad that Martin's coming back. Because growing up in the 90s and then watching all that drivel, and then when he took over, it was like a second coming.
Yeah, so something had to change, and you're happy that it has changed, that Brendan has gone and Martin is in on an interim basis, and we'll see how that goes. Might not be interim though, Andy. What do you think?
I would like to see him stay, obviously, if it does go well, and I think it's Sean Malone has been getting plenty of experience, and maybe he can take over in a few years to come.
Okay, Andy, listen, thanks for the call. Alex Crook alongside Steve Bruce. Alex, lots of speculation here as to who might get it on a permanent basis. And, of course, almost inevitably, the name Ange Postecoglou comes up.
Yeah, Ange Postecoglou was one that was mentioned last night. I've spoken to people close to Ange this morning, and they've played down the prospects of a return. Certainly at this stage, I think he's probably keen to take a bit of time out after what happened to him at Forest. Kieran McKenna is being linked in the Scottish media. I would be surprised. I mean, Simon painted a picture of Kieran McKenna as someone who stayed loyal to Ipswich Town. It was quite easy when the contract was put in front of him. I would suggest to stay loyal. Yeah. And I don't think he would earn the same money at Celtic that he is even in the Championship at Ipswich. You know what? I was just looking as that fan was reminiscing about Martin O'Neill's first spell in charge, looking at some of the players that Martin O'Neill had at his disposal. I'll just name a few. Jackie McNamara, Alan Stubbs, Henrik Larsson, Alan Thompson, Chris Sutton, Eyal Berkovic, Paul Lambert, Stilian Petrov. There's nobody of that ilk in this current Celtic team, by the way.
No.
I was going to say that is some lineup, and arguably Larsson in there was as good as you get.
Larsson are getting now.
Arguably the greatest player maybe ever to play for the club.
Steve, finish this hour for us. What's the priority for Martin as he goes back in there?
Well, the one thing that you can do by the supporters now, that they're delighted that he's come back, because let's make no mistake, he was terrific there. So he's going to calm the waters. And of course, it's been a bit toxic, the club, hasn't it, over the last few months? That's looking from afar. He'll quieten all that down with his experience and his know-how. And obviously now he'll want to beat Falkirk tomorrow night. And by the way, then, if he turns over Rangers at the weekend, then I suggest maybe interim might just last a little bit longer.
Exactly. Martin O'Neill heading north, and he spoke only to this show. As Steve Bruce rightly says, it's Falkirk tomorrow night in the Scottish Premiership. And then on Sunday, it is a League Cup semi-final at Hampden against Danny Roll's Rangers. Yeah, it's all change, isn't it? Hey, that's football. We're live in talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes.
talkSPORT Sports Update, powered by the Nissan Van Range. Score a winning hat-trick of performance, payload and price. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van Centre.
With your headlines at 11:01, I'm Nick Ellaby. Good morning. Martin O'Neill's told talkSPORT he was shocked to get the call from Celtic, but couldn't turn down the club who showed faith in him 25 years ago.
Maybe by the time that I pulled myself off the floor, I probably thought then maybe I should do it.
O'Neill's confirmed his interim appointment at Celtic alongside former midfielder Sean Maloney is short-term only.
They are looking for, I would have assumed, a young coach coming in now who has a proven ability, and would be wanting to pull the club forward now from their position as it stands.
Now, sources close to Ange Postecoglou are playing down the prospect of him returning. Meanwhile, Celtic majority shareholder Dermot Desmond accused Brendan Rodgers of being divisive, misleading and self-serving after Rodgers walked away last night. Eddie Howe says Newcastle's fringe players will get a chance against Spurs in the Carabao Cup tomorrow. Despite being desperate to retain the trophy, Howe says it's a tricky balancing act. Tonight we've got Grimsby versus Brentford live on talkSPORT. Fulham's trip to Wickham is live over on talkSPORT 2 later. We're told administration hasn't really changed anything for Sheffield Wednesday's players. Captain Barry Bannon explains why.
Everybody's written us off and probably put us in League One already, so anything we do above that is a bonus for us, really. So we've got no pressure on us as a club. We've just got to go out and play with a bit of freedom and try and enjoy it.
Wednesday are 18 points from safety after that 12-point deduction. They go to West Brom on Saturday. And news of a shock rematch in boxing. 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather, now 48, are in talks to fight again 10 years down the line. Netflix are on board. There's more on this at talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
Army barracks are going to be used to house asylum seekers from next month, and Jamaica's bracing itself for the strongest storm ever to hit the island. More from the news team at past.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. Get a free vehicle safety check at all of our 600 centres nationwide to keep you safe on the road. QuickFit. Drive away happy every time.
Across Scotland, cloudy and wet. Showers developing across Northern Ireland and parts of northern England. Far south of England seeing some rain as well. Elsewhere mostly dry with sunny spells and another breezy day.
Good morning, everybody. Tuesday morning, October the 28th. It's Jim White, it's Alex Crook, and it's Steve Bruce, and we are live on talkSPORT, live on your TV as well. Fire TV, Apple, Chromecast, Android, Google TV, even Prime Video, wherever you want to watch us, you can. And this morning is no exception. We're with you all the way through until 1 o'clock. And what an hour we have just had right across the lot. You do not miss a thing on this show, live in talkSPORT. Even Mr. Jordan, Lord Jordan, joining us from his hacienda in Spain. It was good to hear from Simon. Off the back of Brendan Rodgers leaving Celtic and Martin O'Neill heading back. You got the lot right here this hour. Amidst a remarkable rise at Bournemouth, we're going to be speaking to the man credited with saving the club over a decade ago. The former chairman, Jeff Mostyn, will join Steve, myself and Alex live in this very studio. That is later. In the meantime, it's time for this.
The Real Deal on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. For the latest special offers, pick up this month's Real Deals in branch or view online at selcobw.com.
So who has been the real deal this month? It would have to be Ruben Amorim, would it not? Steve's former club, Manchester United. Steve Bruce, a club legend. Keen to get Steve's take on this. I mean, a rebound month, Steve, for Amorim. Of that, there is no doubt. United beat Brighton 4-2, make it 3 consecutive league wins in the same season for the first time since February 2024. It's now 4 home wins in a row. Is he about, Steve, to prove a lot of people wrong?
Well, certainly they've had a great few weeks. I think Alex has just reminded me that they've won 5 out of the last 7. So there's certainly been an upturn in their performances. I do believe the 2 players in particular who've caught Mbeumo and Cunha, and they've absolutely hit the ground running. They've showed what they're all about, and they've given that real cutting edge at the top end of the pitch, which maybe for a while wasn't there. I have to say he's made a big call in the dressing room to get rid of big players with big reputations. So it reminds me a little bit of Arsenal, what Arteta did a few years ago, where he's cleared out the dressing room where people are looking from afar thinking, wow, that's a big call. So he's made some big managerial calls. I think we all of us, like him. We all want him to do well, because underneath it all is a decent man who's a very, very good coach. And all of this, is he going to change his tactics? And is he going to do this? And is he going to do that? Obviously not. And he's stuck by him. And then, of course, I think the big thing was Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming out last week. Yeah. All of a sudden saying, if the guy needs time, whatever it takes, 3 years.
Were you surprised by that, Steve?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course, in management, because sometimes you don't get 3 weeks, never mind 3 years, you know. And so it was quite refreshing for him to hear. They've obviously backed him of what he wants to do, because, as I said, he's made some big calls, and it looks, at the moment anyway, that things are on track a little bit, which is great to see, because we all want Man U firing again.
And Radcliffe doing what he did, can that
it can only help.
Does that have a settling effect on a dressing room?
It stops all the nonsense and all the noise. Stops all the noise and said, right, here's a guy that the supporters in the ground are still, which they back every manager. You have to be honest with this. Yeah. They're quite incredible as a support towards their manager. So they're right behind him. The team are playing well at the minute. They're doing okay. So let's hope it just continues. And for the first time in a long time, Alex, maybe they've got recruitment right in the summer. Them 2 players in particular. The other one hasn't hit the ground running. Sesko, is it? That's how you pronounce it?
I think he's been all right.
He's done okay, He's okay. Not like the other 2, though. The other two have got that excitement. They've got that little bit of magic, which Man United are used to seeing over the years.
And the goalkeeper's made a huge difference as well. Maybe could have done better on the Danny Welbeck free kick at the weekend. Maybe his positioning wasn't great for that. But for Manchester United fans, it's just a relief to see a goalkeeper who, when the ball is crossed into the penalty area, he catches it and he doesn't drop it. And I think he's just given some confidence to that defence. It sounds really simplistic.
It's not a lot to ask of your goalkeeper, is it?
I think it's been across the board. Now, you make a good point there. Yeah, that the goalkeeper is a huge position where you have to get right. And it looks as if they've found a very, very good goalkeeper. For the first time in a long time, we're now talking with a bit of glee that the players they've brought in have brought something to the table. Yeah. And I think that's vitally important. And I think the big key to it is them 2 in particular have played in the Premier League. They're used to the Premier League, even though they're foreigners, if you quite like, if that's the right word. They've come and got used to the Premier League. They've both wanted to play for Man U, big style, which helps, of course. And they've brought a little bit of sparkle to them, which is great to see from the outside.
Can I ask you about Matheus Cunha? Because a few people now have said there are similarities between him and when Eric Cantona joined your dressing room, just in terms of stature and personality. Do you see that in Matheus Cunha? Because obviously he had that bad boy reputation, as did Eric.
Yeah. Well, not as bad boy as Eric. But I've never seen, and I haven't seen anybody since, walk into a dressing room, have the ability to turn your collar up for a start and perform the way Eric did. So it's a big call you've just made. To be in that category is fantastic for people to make the comparison. Eric was quite simply unique in what he did. Had all the traits of the bad boy, but he had the backing of everybody around him, the players and the manager, who managed him fantastically well. But his ability was absolutely there for everybody to see. And if he hadn't jumped into the crowd that night at Crystal Palace, I'm sure we would have won 3 doubles on the trot. Yeah. We would have won 94, 95 and 90. We won 94, lost 95 because he wasn't there, and then won when he came back in 96. So,
Steve, now though, for United now, have the targets and expectations moved somewhat for Manchester United? Should top 4 be something they look at?
Well, over the last probably decade, you would say yes.
I mean, no midweek fixtures in Europe.
Well, that can only help them at this particular moment, because the more work on the training ground that obviously the manager does, then obviously it helps, and it helps in recovery. It's difficult to play in Europe when you play Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday even, and playing again on the Saturday. So, but Man U has got to be making strides to be the champions again. It's been a decade now, isn't it? Is it a decade now?
Yeah.
So that's got to be the remit. A bit like back when I went there years and years ago, they've got to start winning leagues again. And that is going to be the biggest hurdle that they're all going to try and achieve. At this particular moment, they're going along nicely. Let's hope it continues for up until Christmas, and let's see where they are at Christmas.
So from Steve Bruce, from one captain to another, it takes us to Bruno Fernandes. And albeit it was a couple of years ago, but this was a certain Graham Souness with Simon and myself on Fernandes as skipper.
He is obviously not a leader. It's as plain as the nose on the end of your face. He is not a leader. Fernandes, you'll see, be a star when they're on top and they're on the front foot, and he's creative, and he is a real talent. And he is a real talent, but he showed a side to him that day at Anfield, which is very unattractive. But the manager man you have right now is willing to overlook that, because he knows going forward that he will win him games, he will score him goals. But in his head, the manager's head, he will know the first time I come up against a really difficult situation again, is he going to go missing? And I think the manager knows the answer to that.
Now, 300 games in, Steve.
I have got the hugest respect for Mr. Souness, and by the way, but you don't get them like him anymore in this leadership. They're not like him. But what you have to say, you're right, 300 games, he has beat the standout performer of Man U over them. How long's that been? 5-6 years has it been? He's certainly been the one with a bit of quality. You know, we're talking about loyalty. I believe he turned down an astronomical sum of money to turn down Saudi Arabia.
$1 million a week.
Yeah, which takes some turning down, and because he still was part of the project of going forward. Listen, he's not the leadership in terms of the way Graham Souness was a leader, but certainly over the last 5-6 years, he's been United's best player by a million miles.
Is he accepted as a leader now, Alex?
I think there's different ways to lead. And I think Steve's bang on, you know, the type of captains, even Steve himself, but Roy Keane particularly, they don't make them like that anymore. John Terry. How many genuine leaders are there in the Premier League? Not just at Manchester United, but you look at his numbers, his goals and his assists at a time when United are at their lowest ebb, certainly in my lifetime. He keeps on delivering. How many players in the Premier League could have played that first-time pass back into the box in the final seconds at Anfield to win the game effectively? Harry Maguire couldn't miss that header. There were 3 queuing up at the far post. And I was there, Ruud van Nistelrooy's first game as caretaker manager. They put 5 past Leicester in the League Cup. I had my 2 lads with me. I said, come on, let's go and watch the players leave. You might get a photograph. You might get a couple of autographs. A lot of the players that night, head down, earphones in, ignored the fans. Bruno Fernandes spent an hour, at least an hour, posing for photos, signing autographs. That's what being the Manchester United captain is all about, as much as screaming and shouting on the pitches.
He's not wrong, is he?
Yeah, not wrong at all in his personality. But, you know, in the team I played in, you talk about captains. You know, if I wasn't captain, then Pally could stand in. Certainly Schmeichel would have a go. then you've got Robson and Keane and Ince, and all of them were sort of.
But that's a bygone era, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, it's a bygone era. There's a few throwbacks, of course there is, in what they are. But I have to say, his numbers stack up, what he's done and how he's achieved it. For me, he's been, as I said, the outstanding player for the last 4 or 5 years.
And Steve, Bruno himself says, everyone knows my aim is to win the Premier League and the Champions League with the club. That's my aim. It's also my aim for the club, and that is the truth. Can you see that happening anytime soon?
Well, we'd like to think so. Certainly, they've made big strides over the last couple of months in particular. As I said, I think every Man United fan has been waiting a long, long time. And there's been, in particular last season, some dark moments in there, isn't there? When Man United are finishing 15th in the league, it's not going to be acceptable.
They're still miles off it, though, are they not?
Yeah, they've still got a long way to go, but they've made big, huge strides in the last few months. They've made some big, big calls. The people who've left, the Rashfords of this world and the Garnachos of this world, some big players have left the building, And he's made some big calls, so let's hope it's the turnaround of a huge big tanker.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because Manchester United always fill airtime. They're the same from the fans, is hated, adored, never ignored. We're focusing on Manchester United at a time when they're above Liverpool in the table. The champions have lost 4 games in a row. Manchester City, level on points, yet all the talk is still about Manchester United. And I guess when you play for Manchester United or you manage Manchester United, that's the pressure you have to endure on a daily basis.
I don't think anybody quite grasps or understands until you get in there. And it was a long time ago for me, but I remember my first morning walking down the steps of the training ground and walking in, and Robson and Whiteside and McGrath and all these people. But it is the outside. Back in the day when newspapers were newspapers, there would be 6 pages on Man U. You know, it was it engrosses you,
exactly.
and it takes over your life. It's huge. It's a monster of a football.
And they still do. So maybe Ruben Amorim and Bruno Fernandes are this week's Real Deal with Selco Builders Warehouse. For the latest special offers, pick up this month's Real Deals in branch or view online at selcobw.com.
The Real Deal on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's Real Deals at selcobw.com.
Steve Bruce alongside Alex Crook and myself live on talkSPORT. This is Tuesday, October the 28th. I want to thank everybody. Simon's over in Spain, but we heard from him earlier on reacting to the fact that Brendan Rodgers has left Celtic and Martin O'Neill's heading up on an interim basis. Simon has given us a contribution from Spain this morning. There's so many of you getting in touch. Honestly, it is quite magnificent. Thanks for all the interaction that we get on this show, because your participation is absolutely crucial to us on a day-to-day basis. And today is no different. And Steve Bruce, fair to say, man of many clubs, managed quite a number. And many of you reacting to that fact. And it's not lost on Sunderland fans getting in touch in big numbers this morning. There's Toby, huge Sunderland fan. I really want to hear from Steve. What does he honestly think of our prospects of doing something that would be special this season, especially in view of the start to the season that we have made? I mean, Sunderland, as you know, Steve, at the weekend stunned Chelsea, that last-minute winner at Stamford Bridge. I did not see that coming. I don't know if you did.
No.
Temporarily, they moved into second place. I mean,
Which is quite remarkable, yeah.
Are they pinching themselves?
Well, I would presume so. I mean, we know how difficult it is for a team to come out the Championship and into the Premier League. I have to say, looking from afar now, I'm delighted. I'm delighted, and I can say that after managing them a long, long time ago, it's a fantastic football club, and it's good to see them where I think they should be. They've got a magnificent support. Do you know there's a town of city of 135,000 maybe, and I think 40,000 go to the games. I mean, how ridiculous is that? I mean, it's surely purely passionate. And the one thing that they've done again, in the summer, their recruitment has been absolutely, where's he found all these guys?
Yes.
Or where have they found all these guys?
Because 14 new arrivals. 14.
And everybody said, they've spent a lot of money, but you've still got to get it right. And at this particular moment, they've all come to the Premier League. You have to say, the coach looks very, very good at what he does.
Yeah.
He's put a very, very good team together. They look well drilled, well coached. And how refreshing it is to see a team not struggle, because we've seen lots of teams come out the Championship and really can't make a fist of it in the big league.
Sure.
Sunderland, at this particular moment, are going great. Long may it continue. But they've been very, very good to watch.
I absolutely love their fans. Wherever I see them, if it's in London or further afield, they are superb supporters. Alex will have seen Sunderland at close quarters. I want to get his take on what he's watching at the moment. But Steve quite rightly mentioned this man, Regis Lebris, and he says it's simple. 40 points is the target.
The target remains exactly the same. We want to reach as soon as possible the target of 40 points, something like that. And so it's not the halfway. We need 3 more points to be at that point. So we'll see. It's important to start well, because it gives confidence and belief. And sometimes you can create a negative dynamic. It's really hard to change the mindset, the confidence, and so on. So good to start like that, and happy for our fans.
Do you believe him, Steve? Before I ask Alex, I mean, 40 points is the target.
Yeah. I used to think you need 10 wins to stay in the Premier League, and that gives you 30, and you'll probably get 6 or 7 draws on top of that. And that was always the aim of a club when we were at Sunderland. Even when I was at Newcastle, can I say that now? Where they're flying, that was the aim, is to stay up. And I've had clubs that you've got to stay in the Premier League. That is your sole objective, is to stay there. Not easy when you're managing Sunderland, but they've had a remarkable start. I think was it 17 points from
17 points
from 9 games.
5 wins from 9.
Wow, he'll have taken that all day long.
I mean, Alex, they could become the story of the season before long, couldn't they?
They could, and I thought they were terrific value for their win at Chelsea at the weekend. Obviously, stoppage time winner, but it wasn't smash and grab. Even when Chelsea took an early lead, Sunderland already had a couple of great chances to put a goal on the board before they fell behind. Brilliant character to equalise so quickly. And over the course of the 90 minutes, despite what Andy Jacobs was ranting about yesterday afternoon on his programme, they were the better team. But I think he's right not to get too carried away, Regis Lebris. I remember covering Portsmouth under Harry Redknapp when they first got promotion to the Premier League. They were top of the table at one stage early season because they got a lot of points early on, particularly at home. Fratton Park, as you'll testify, was a tough place to go. Their form deserted them in the second half of the season, and then they had a sort of revival around March, April time, and just about got the points to stay up. So I think as a newly promoted team, you need to get those points on the board early, and particularly in Sunderland's case, because we get to December, January, a lot of the players they've signed are going to be off at the African Cup of Nations, and that is going to be a real test of their squad.
I mean, it's wonderful, Steve, that they are in the top flight, not least for this. Everton at home, Arsenal at home, Fulham away, Bournemouth home, Liverpool away, Man City away. How will they do in all those games? Oh, and yes, Newcastle at home.
Well, that'll be some atmosphere in some game. I have to tell you, I've experienced it. I know Sunderland manager, and we lost heavily to Newcastle, and I didn't think I ever recovered from that, if I'm being brutally honest. It's a huge, huge game, and great for the area, great for the North East, that they are, holding this derby again, because it's a one-off, I have to tell you.
Yeah, what is it like? I mean, I would always say Rangers, Celtic, Celtic, Rangers, but
there's a crackle to it, a toxic, if that's what you mean. There's a bit of hatred, if you say, is that the right word? It's a real derby game where, Liverpool, Man U comes to mind, but certainly a big, huge occasion, and both sets are hugely passionate.
Is it the most intense derby you've been involved in?
Arguably.
Because you've been involved in a few.
I've been involved in a few, yeah.
Player and manager.
Arguably, it is as big. Certainly, the Man U Liverpool one was the toughest, I think, of all of them in my experience with it. Man City, Man U never sort of was that way.
No.
Back in my day, it is now a little bit, but
yeah.
But certainly the North East derby. For me, there's only probably Rangers Celtic, which tops it, maybe. I'm only saying that because you're sitting here.
It's funny that Steve was talking earlier about Manchester United's recruitment and the fact they've signed 2 players from the Premier League. Of all the players Sunderland signed in the summer, did you say it was 12, 14 players?
Yeah.
Granit Xhaka, with that Premier League experience, he's the absolute driving force in that team.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people were not having him when he was at Arsenal. No. I've got to get rid of him. He's got that old throwback of what Souness was talking about, 10, 15 minutes ago. He's got that passion and a bit of fighting in him. He's got all of them credentials which have made him a big player for Sunderland. And the big thing is, and I've just experienced it a little bit at Blackpool, when you make big changes, 10, 12 people walk through the club, the hard thing is to put them together and get off and running quickly. I'm delighted for the manager of Sunderland that he's got off to it. I've just experienced at Blackpool where it's gone a little bit wrong for me, that I'm still thinking that Blackpool will come good, and I hope they do for everybody concerned there. I really, really do, because I think we've left them some good players, but they didn't hit the ground running.
Yes.
And that is the big
And
thing,
that's what Sunderland have done.
And Sunderland have hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Great for them.
Great for them. Well done, the Black Cats, absolutely flying, and it's Everton at home for you next. For us, a brief break at 11:30. Jim White, Steve Bruce, Alex Crook, live in talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes.
pads are a footballer's best friend. Even if players like Jack Grealish do wear such small ones you can barely even see them. But what's the story with shin pads, and are there actually any rules on how big they should be? It all started with cricket, actually. Cricketers had been wearing shin pads since the 1700s. It was thanks to this guy that shin protection made its way over to football. Meet Samuel Widdowson. He was a cricketer and a footballer. He played for Nottingham Forest back in the late 1800s, and he wanted a way to protect his legs from nasty tackles. Naturally, his mind drifted to his other favourite sport, where players had been wearing these pads for a century. Story goes, Widdowson cut up his cricket pads and popped them on before taking to the footy pitch. His Nottingham Forest team then began wearing them from 1887, and the first known use of them in a match was in 1894, in a match between Newcastle and the then Woolwich Arsenal. Eventually, FIFA clocked on that this kind of protection was pretty important for footballers. And so, in 1990, basically 100 years after Widdowson first put them on, shin pads were made compulsory. It became part of Law 4 of IFAB. That's the body responsible for setting the laws of the game internationally. But the law doesn't actually specify anything about measurements of shin pads. It just says they must be made of a suitable material and be of an appropriate size to provide reasonable protection. It's really vague, even though there have been calls for it to be changed. But for now, that's why Grealish and co can still get away with these ones, which are no bigger than a credit card and which seem to offer little to no protection whatsoever.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Get ready for the golden era of sports betting. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18 plus gambleaware.org.
So it's that time. Matt Gibson joins us from BetMGM, and only one place to start. Steve Bruce alongside Alex here in studio. Matt, good morning to you. Brendan's gone. Martin O'Neill's in on an interim basis. What else can you tell us? What do you know in terms of the odds?
Well, he kept it quiet yesterday, didn't he, gents? When we were chewing the fat on the Premier League yesterday. So talkSPORT Tower straight to Celtic, it appears. But yeah, as you say, Jim, Martin in there on an interim basis. There are various prices out there in the market. Ange is odds-on favourite to take up the job on a temporary on a permanent role. Kieran McKenna in there. Martin has got a price round about sort of 10-12 to 1 for the permanent job. Solskjaer's in there at a big price, but I think a lot of the bookies are just trying to catch up because it was a real shock with Brendan going. Will Martin have an immediate effect on Celtic? I think they play Falkirk relatively quickly, don't they? And then there's obviously a game with Rangers on the horizon as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully Celtic fans will be hoping that they'll be able to turn it around. In terms of the odds, Jim, we were talking yesterday. Celtic still 3-5 to win the division. Hearts still outsiders at 6-4, so no movement in price there. But in terms of Brendan's stock, fellas, what is next for him? The statement was that he resigned last night. He's 4-1 to go to Wolves. I think that's the only market we've got prices on. You know, would he be interested in the Fulham job if Marco moves? Juventus have just sacked the manager. What next for Brendan, and how high is his stock in the market, fellas?
Well, I mean, Steve is alongside us, Matt. How quickly will Brendan, do you think? We can't second guess him what he's thinking, but how quickly do you think he would want to get back in?
Let's not forget, you know, it's been pretty negative stuff on Brendan all morning, really. But let's not forget that he's a very, very talented man. His record speaks for itself. He's won trophies galore. I'm sure he'll be sought after. Maybe he'll probably, like all of us think, will take a break for a little while and then just see what develops. But I'm sure there'll be lots of calls for Brendan, that's for sure, because of such a good job he's done over the years.
If he's not happy with the investment at Celtic, I would suggest that Wolves probably isn't the right fit for Brendan Rodgers at this moment in time.
Right. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's name getting mentioned, Alex. He was linked with Rangers before Rowe got it.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. I know Simon Jordan would have a view on that. It's a massive job. You look at what he did at Manchester United in that COVID season, fantastic, but there he quickly unravelled, went to Turkey, didn't work out for him there. I think Celtic fans would be quite underwhelmed if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got the job. Kieran McKenna, I think, is an interesting one, despite what we were saying about the wages. Certainly one to keep an eye on.
Actually, when you look back on all his time, when he managed United,
did fabulously.
Wasn't that bad a job, was it?
He did fabulously well at a particular time. He walked in as an interim and ended up with the job. Of course he did, and he did it. He did a really, really decent job at that. So I'm a bit biased towards Ollie, but so I'm going to disagree with you, Crookie, there to say that he's managed a big club in United. Maybe he hasn't worked for Turkey, but that Turkey one seems, a lot of people have found it difficult in Turkey, let's be brutally honest. So hey, you never know.
Well, you never know. What about Manchester United, Matt? Back to the best, do you think? What's your thinking?
Well, I'm sure the best is probably quite a way away, but there's certainly green shoots, right? I know you were just talking about how impressed you were with Brian Mbeumo and Cunha. And Mbeumo got a little bit of stick early doors, but 4 goals in 9 Prem games, I don't think's a bad return at all. 1 point above Liverpool, level on points with City. That's a pretty decent start. Crookie, I know we were having a beer at Ascot earlier this month. There was big talk of Amorim under a lot of pressure if they lost to Sunderland 3 weeks ago, and it was sort of dire straits stuff. Now, 3 weeks down the line, a lot can change in football, and as a start to the season, you've got to be pretty happy as a Man United fan. You're all right. You're a big prize, 25s to win the title, top 2 at 10s, top 4 9-4, in from about 4-1. That so a big shift in the odds in 3 weeks, but certainly signs that you're going the right way, and the goalkeeper certainly looks like an upgrade on what you've had in the past.
I got a bit of stick when we did our pre-season predictions. We did your competition for charity, and I said United would finish 5th. Even 2 weeks ago, Dan Towse was on here winding me up about that. But you look at the 4 and 5 wins in 7. They've had a pretty difficult set of fixtures at the start of the season. I don't think top 5, which would be a Champions League place based on how well English teams are performing in that competition, I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility. You look at the teams that are up there with the greatest respect in the world. Is Sunderland realistically going to finish in the top 4? I don't think so. I'd say the same about Bournemouth. So I think it's there for United if they can maintain this momentum and keep players fit, because you saw at the weekend when they had to make changes second half, the squad depth isn't really there at the moment.
Yeah. Matt, we've got the Carabao Cup 4th round tonight. Live on talkSPORT, Grimsby, Brentford. Live on talkSPORT 2, Wycombe, Fulham.
Yeah, we've got 3 games in action. You've got the all-Welsh affair, Wrexham, Cardiff. Wrexham 5-4 to win that. And then, as you say, Jim, Grimsby, Brentford, Wycombe, Fulham. Just an interesting one with this one. I'd like sort of Steve's opinion on this. I've asked Simon a lot of the time. But Fulham and Brentford, right, they've got, on paper, fairly straightforward away ties here. But Brentford have got Palace at the weekend. Fulham have got arguably a massive game against Wolves. What sort of side, as a manager, Steve, are you taking to these places? Obviously, Grimsby, tough place to go. Ask a Man United fan. Wycombe, tricky one for Fulham. Are you keeping momentum and playing your best players, or are you having a little bit of a rest and trying to rotate?
Well, I can only go through experience and the type of club that Fulham or Brentford are in. Of course, everybody wants to be in the Premier League. That's a given. However, I remember being in charge of Hull a few years ago, and all of a sudden we had a little bit of momentum in the FA Cup, and it gets to the 5th round and 6th round, and I thought, I'm going to forget about the Premier League for a moment here. We've got a chance because everybody else was rotating. And I remember we playing Sunderland, who in the quarter-final of the FA Cup, who put out the reserve team, and thankfully we went on to beat them. And when I look back on it now, if you're a club or a supporter of Hull, Fulham, Brentford, your biggest day out ever is going to Wembley and trying to compete for a trophy. Yeah. And so back them days, I thought, I've got to rotate, and I did it with Hull in Europe when we went to Europe, which probably I regret now, because when I look back at my time and all these clubs, getting to a final or getting to a Carabao Cup final or getting to an FA Cup final is probably, and ask any Hull fan, the biggest day of their life, because it doesn't come around very often.
And you got to that FA Cup.
We got to the final and
against Arsenal.
We got 2-0 up against Arsenal. Could have won it. Should have won it. And we just got pipped.
Sorry
in extra
to bring
time.
that up.
Thanks, Jim.
You kind of brought it up anyway.
I did, yeah.
Matt, terrific. Who's favourite to win the Carabao Cup then, before you leave us?
Market's got Liverpool as top of the market. Arsenal, big price at 6. City in between at 5. Brentford and Fulham, if we are back in the fairy tale, both of those are 16s. So if hopefully Fulham and Brentford take Steve's approach, play a loaded side, beat the team they need to beat, and can go fairly deep in this competition and give their fans an unforgettable day out.
Matt, thanks very much indeed. Remember, visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18 plus, gambleaware.org.
boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Sign up now at dazn.com/boxing.
This Saturday, Josh Boatse makes his Queensberry debut against Zach Parker, who's in a winning streak since losing in 2022. Watch this Saturday live only on DAZN. Massive story, of course, up north. Brendan Rodgers leaving Celtic, and in comes Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill in charge going forward, certainly against Falkirk in the Scottish Premiership game tomorrow night. And then on Sunday, the Old Firm lock horns at Hampden. It is the League Cup semi-final. It's Celtic against Rangers. Martin O'Neill in one technical area and Danny Roll in the other. How quickly things can change in football. Doesn't seem that long ago we had Martin O'Neill, Ireland manager, and he was trying to get Declan Rice to play for Ireland, but he opted to play for England. Same as Jack Grealish. Could have played for Ireland, but opted to play for England. Interestingly, Alex, and you'll have noticed this, Everton's Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, who's a thoroughly nice lad, I've met him, he's publicly revealed that he wants to play for England over Ireland on the international stage. Ireland have been trying to persuade him to join them, but his grandparents are from Ireland, but he's saying no. Although undecided up until now, it's England for him. Does that surprise you? When he could have a decent future at international level with the Irish?
A little bit, because I think if you look at the England squad now, and we're talking about probably going to the World Cup without the likes of Jack Grealish and Phil Foden, it's difficult to see how Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, as well as he's playing for Everton, I was there at the weekend and they lost 3-0, but him and Jack Grealish played particularly well. I don't see that an England cap is on the horizon anytime soon, but maybe, as much as he wants to play for England, it also tells you where the Republic of Ireland are at this moment in time. Maybe they're not quite such a draw as they would have been in the mid-90s when this man could have played for them.
Well, let's get to that. Because, Steve, to be fair, I mean, what a defender you were. I mean, absolutely brilliant. I remember it.
It was a bloody long time ago, Jim, if you can remember.
Top man. Have a look at it on YouTube, whatever. Steve Bruce and Gary Pallister at Manchester United. But disappointment nonetheless, and it still must linger that you never played for England.
Well, of course, the one question that everybody asks me is that, do you have any regrets that you never played? And I never had the opportunity. I don't think, I didn't even get in a squad. So it didn't really happen for me, but I was closer to playing for Ireland than I was England, because I got a phone call.
Your mum, Irish?
My mum's Irish, and I got a phone call from Jack Charlton. And I won't try and put on the Geordie accent because I've got one. But he said along the lines is, I've just bumped into your mother's next door neighbour on a train to London and tells me that your mother's Irish. This is Jack talking to me. I said, Jack, that's absolutely true. Why haven't you bloody told me before now? I said, well, it's not really a thing I shout about, you know. He said, well, listen. He says, we've got a problem with centre-backs. We've got 1 or 2 injuries. You know, we've got the USA 94 coming up. Would you be interested? I says, Jack, I'd jump at the chance. I was 34 at the time and still going okay. And of course, to go and play in America and USA 94, I thought how fantastic that would be. So I said yes to him straight away. Of course, the next day, I had to go and tell Sir Alex. And back in them days, you became a foreign player. So I was going up the stairs to go and see the boss and tell him the news. And he quite rightly shot me down. He said, listen, Steve, you cannot, become a foreign player. Otherwise, you're not going to be part of the squad going forward. And if you remember when we played in the Champions League them days, we had to leave out Cantona and Schmeichel. Barcelona. We got biggest night of our life. We'll get smashed because we couldn't pick the same team. Couldn't have the team because of the foreign rule. So as quickly as it came along, it dissolved.
Were you gutted?
I was absolutely gutted. So much so, I went to USA. I went to New York. I took my son Alex at the time, who was 12, 13, 14, something like that. And then we went down to Florida to watch them there. So we followed the Irish in USA 94, and what a great tournament they had. But one that got away. So I was arguably closer to playing for Ireland than I was England. However, Brian Robson became the assistant to Terry Venables. And they rang me when I was 35, 36 to say there's a friendly against Nigeria at Wembley. We'd like to include you. And I said, listen, Brian, in no disrespect, but I don't want a sympathy vote, you know. I don't really want it as much. I would have loved to have had an England cap, one even. I turned that one down.
Why didn't it happen? Yeah.
I just thought I was 35, 36. Listen, it's all about opinions. And it was opinions that, you know, the England manager at the time, Bobby Robson, came out and said, I should have capped him. However, Terry Butcher, Tony Adams, Des Walker all must have played 70, 80 times. So for that period of time, they were the England centre-backs.
Why didn't you say yes to the chance of one?
I just thought it wasn't quite right that I was being given a sympathy vote because he was my mate. And Brian very, very understood it and said, we're struggling for centre back.
This morning, I could have introduced you as Steve Bruce, former Manchester United and England international, with us all the way through until one.
I didn't think it would be right to just take one cap. I would have loved to have played for my country, and there was times when I thought maybe I'm going to get a call up, but never was. And the whole dressing room, you can imagine it, when international break was on, I was the only one left in the dressing room. They're all going here, there, and everywhere. And I'm captain of these lot, and all of a sudden I'm not involved in any of it.
Do you think caps are given out too easily, too readily these days?
I don't think the caps are given out too readily. I just think it's a different sort of situation now, where you have a great big huge squad. You know, back in the day when we won the league, first time round in 94 or it was 93.
Yeah.
I think there's 15 players. You know, there's 15 players on the board. There's not 25. So don't think they're giving out willy-nilly. I sincerely hope not, anyway.
Do you think in some ways, though, the fact you didn't play international football helped prolong your club career and enabled you to stay at a top level for Manchester United for longer?
Well, thankfully, yeah, possibly because, I was fortunate that I didn't really have any injuries, and I was still playing at 36, and then I went to play nearly 100 times for Birmingham after that, after Man U. So I was fortunate enough to play 38, 39.
Why didn't you say your mum was Scottish? We would have taken it in a heartbeat.
I would still been foreign.
No, Ireland. You'd have been foreign playing for Ireland.
Yeah, it was Scotland. No, even Scotland's the same, yeah.
Were you?
Yeah, it was the same, yeah.
A foreigner? Moi? Here's the thing, you could have managed England, could you?
No.
Were you close to it?
I had an interview, yeah, when Sam got it. But I think it was probably a done deal by the time it got to me, I would have thought. But yeah, I had a conversation with Dan Ashworth, and obviously didn't go that well.
And when Sam had it and lost it,
yeah, you maybe thought.
Did you think you were back in the frame?
And if you remember, then Gareth took over on an interim.
Yeah,
and did very, very well. And by the way, he did fantastically well. So fair play to Gareth. Just was in the right situation at the right moment and landed the job and got some great results and took us far. I'm pleased for him.
You know, since we're talking international football, ahead of this World Cup, we know Tuchel, the man in charge now, and it will start rumbling big time. Tuchel's playing it down. England fans expect it's coming home. You know where I'm going with it.
Yeah, I know where you're going. And that expectation, we must have a chance. The expectation of all the club, the history of England and the expectation level is always huge, but I think we're all ready for that. We've got some very, very talented players, and he's got to make a big call. He has made a big call. You know, Bellingham has won. You know, there's the big call of them all, because this kid is a fantastic player. To not be involved over the last couple of squads is interesting to see it going forward. What will be the next one, and will he go to the World Cup? Who knows? But with England, we've always got a chance.
I mean, Tuchel says you go into it as underdogs, and he's happy at that. Are you?
Well, of course, I think we'd have to maybe be underdogs, but we've got a chance, haven't we? We have to, with the talent that we've got, especially in a forward area. Take the number 10, which is the most difficult to find. We've arguably we got 4 or 5, and in everybody's opinion might be different.
Yeah.
Bellingham being one, and the other ones, and Foden being another, and it goes on.
Palmer when he gets fit.
Palmer when he's fit is as good as what you get, and you've got Harry Kane who doesn't stop scoring. So
he's been incredible.
All to play for.
I think underdogs is stretching it a little bit. Yes, we're not the favourites to win the World Cup, but you look around the world, Brazil struggling a little bit under Ancelotti, Argentina probably aren't the team they were even at the last World Cup in Qatar. France, tremendously talented individuals. Do they bring it together as a team? I think Spain are the biggest threat for England, but they've got to at least, for me, be You're talking semi-finalists, I think, for England.
We're very happy to be classed as underdogs. Just be really happy to get there. When we come back, we're going to talk about the incredible rise of Bournemouth, a club that Alex knows very well. He's covered it many occasions. And we're going to do that with someone who's been centrally involved in that rise. In fact, highs and lows in his time at the football club, Jeff Mostyn. He's going to be joining us live. It is 12 noon this Tuesday lunchtime.
talkSPORT Sports Update, powered by the Nissan Van Range, helping business owners to work better and live better. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van Centre.
With your headlines at 1 minute past 12, I'm Nick Ellaby. Good afternoon. Martin O'Neill's told talkSPORT he said yes to Celtic as soon as he picked himself up off the floor. He's back at Celtic on a short-term basis, 25 years since he last took the job. Jim asked Martin if this was a heart-ruling head appointment.
Who knows? Who knows? Absolutely. This is it's a short term. Celtic, obviously, I think probably are stunned with the news that Brendan left.
All this as Celtic's majority shareholder Dermot Desmond calls Brendan Rodgers divisive, misleading and self-serving after he quit. Simon Jordan makes Desmond right.
After Brendan had come out talking about Honda Civics and that sort of nonsense, that, you know, if I was in Dermot's shoes, I would have given him a smack, metaphorically. And here's the smack.
Now, Chelsea's Liam Delap could return from injury tomorrow. Enzo Maresca is managing him carefully, though. Delap's been out since August with a hamstring problem. Chelsea go to Wolves in the Carabao Cup, live on the talkSPORT app tomorrow night. João Pedro, Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo are expected to be rested. Sheffield Wednesday's captains told us, if anything, administration means the players there are under less pressure.
We've not had a great start as well with results, so it's been hard anyway. This makes it obviously a lot harder. But it gives you a bit of freedom now as well to just go out and try and enjoy your football because everybody's written us off.
And Bannon says Wednesday might be allowed loans or free signings in January. The club's under a transfer embargo over unpaid salaries and are now 18 points from safety after that 12-point deduction. There's more at talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
People in Jamaica are bracing for the strongest storm ever to hit the island, and Fawlty Towers actress Prunella Scales, who played Sybil Fawlty, has died aged 93. More from the news team at past.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. Come rain or shine, we've got your electric car covered with 400 EV ready centres, so you can drive away happy every time.
Across Scotland, cloudy and showery. Showers also developing across Northern Ireland and parts of northern England. Far south of England seeing some rain as well. Elsewhere, mostly dry with sunny spells and a breezy day.
Mid-mornings and into the afternoon as well. Good afternoon, everybody. It is 3 minutes past 12 noon this Tuesday lunchtime. It is Jim White, it's Alex Crook, and it's Steve Bruce, and we are live on talkSPORT. You heard exclusively from Martin O'Neill earlier on this morning. Martin O'Neill heading to Glasgow as we speak to take over from Brendan Rodgers, who sensationally quit the football club yesterday. And of course, next up for interim boss Mr. O'Neill, a match against Falkirk at Celtic Park. That's just for starters. And then on Sunday, my God, what a baptism of fire for Martin back at where it all went so well for him years ago. It is Rangers against Celtic in the League Cup semi-final at Hampden Park. Cannot wait to find out how that man does in all of that. This man I have known for many years. Jeff Mostyn initially became involved with Bournemouth in 2006 before serving until chairman. Until 2022, following the sale of the club to Bill Foley. Someone, of course, Alex Crook has interviewed for talkSPORT on numerous occasions. Jeff Mostyn saved Bournemouth from the brink, with the club facing the prospect of going out of business altogether. A journey from administration to the Premier League, with a young Eddie Howe leading the club in the dugout. It is a very good afternoon to Jeff Mostyn. How are you?
Jim, what an honour and a privilege it is to be here, and especially with your exalted guests as well. I'm absolutely thrilled to be with you again.
Exalted guests, Mr. Alex Crook.
Listen, he's never been called that before, but there's always a first.
And it's the first time I've been called that. No, I've called many other things, but not that, I have to tell you. Thank you very much for that.
You know these guys. You certainly know Alex. And, of course, you've met Steve Bruce on numerous occasions. Jeff, it's great having you on board, especially at a time like this with Bournemouth going so well. We will get to that, but let's start with this. You join us in studio ahead of the publication of your new book, The Chairman, and it's out this week. You officially left Bournemouth in 2022, but 3 years on, the book has come out. So what was the motivation behind it?
Well, I think, Jim, every time I've done any public speaking or, any appearances on your show or any kind of broadcasting, at the end of my presentation talking about the story, people have said to me, Jeff, you have to write a book. This is one of the greatest football stories ever told, if not one of the great sporting stories ever told. So I suppose when I had time to sit down and reflect, it became almost subliminal that this is one thing I need to do. And I started off thinking all I wanted was 10 copies for my wife and family, done at pronto print, with a ring binder. And it suddenly gathered momentum to become a published book. So very proud.
There's so much in it. Talk about highs and lows. Before we crack on, Alex, it's in your neck of the woods, and you've covered Bournemouth on many occasions. You always told me when I first met Bournemouth, believe me, a special club in going places. My God, you were right.
Yeah, a special club in so many ways. I'm showing my age a little bit here, but I remember covering them down in League Two. They played Dagenham and Redbridge, it was, on a Tuesday night. It finished in a 0-0 draw, and Dagenham and Redbridge celebrated like they won the FA Cup. To go from there to where they are now is absolutely incredible, and credit to Jeff for the work that he did. Obviously, Maxim Demin for providing the funds to kick them on as a Premier League club. Eddie Howe, who for me is an absolute genius, and we should be sat here now talking about him as England manager and not Thomas Tuchel, in my humble opinion. And then you look at Bill Foley, just say I've met him a few times. I met him actually before he officially became owner. And I thought, my word, this guy is for real. He is not messing around. They've got a brilliant new training ground. There are plans afoot for a new stadium. And you look at the team that he's built as well. They sold 3 of their best players in the summer. And here they are still in the giddy heights in the top 4 in the Premier League. And the best example of how far they've come since that Dagenham and Redbridge game is they sold players not to Championship or EFL teams. They sold players to Paris Saint-Germain. They sold players to Real Madrid. They sold players to Liverpool. That is quite incredible.
Steve, I don't know if you know about the man sitting to your left, but I've known Jeff for a number of years. And there's a lot more to Jeff than meets the eye. And I mean that. Your time in football, particularly early on, Jeff, was one of overcoming adversity. And I don't want to pass up this opportunity to mention this today because this is important and significant. Your story begins with a childhood of being bullied, family strife, your sister contracted polio, and you left school at 15 with no qualifications. But you found business and you weren't that bad at it, eventually setting up your own company, but you provided financial support for those in the armed forces. I mean, what a journey I have just described, Jeff.
It's amazing. When you say it so quickly, Jim, my God, it's like my whole life flashing in front of me in your studio today. And yeah, I think that I've mentioned in my book that I've paid some form of tribute, whether it's an acknowledgement or something of that kind, to those people that bullied me, because I wanted to thank them for providing me the inspiration to be successful, rather than be critical of what they did. And I think that the book is, it is an autobiography. We know that the key element of it is the journey of Bournemouth to where we are today. But I think reflecting back on that, I think I said in the book that I left school at 15 without any qualifications other than a degree in truancy. Because, I was bloody good at it. And of course, when I wasn't at school, which was pretty often, you look at the syllabus, maths first and then a good kicking, for the second lesson. The love of my life has been football, always wanted to be a footballer like millions and millions of, boys and girls around the world, but was never quite good enough. So I used to go and watch Manchester City and Manchester United train, collect autographs, then go back into school to sell the autographs to get enough money to go to the match. And I can't remember how many matches I saw because without watching the match, I used to collect programs so I could go back into school and sell the programs. Because they used to have little tokens in the programs in those days to enable people to get a ticket in advance of everybody else. And people say to me now, my God, Jeff, at an early age, you showed such incredible entrepreneurial skills. Well, on the basis of leaving school at 15 with no education, I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. And I suppose in those days, the entrepreneur is such a buzzword now. It wasn't so much when I was growing up. Yeah. So I think that in reflection, my childhood has given me the most amazing foundation to be focused on the good things in life rather than the bad.
Sure. I mean, you were born in Manchester, a lover of Manchester City, as you've said, and Mike Summerby.
You've just killed...
Why are you sitting next to me, the guy?
God, you've just killed this relationship and it's only just started.
A lover of City, a lover of Mike Summerby. This is Steve Bruce, the former Manchester United cap. But here's the thing, how did Jeff Mostyn find himself at Bournemouth in the South Coast then?
So my best friend for over 45 years was Kevin Bond. So Kevin, of course, was captain of Manchester City. His dad, the late, great John, was manager of Manchester City. And they moved into a house on the Mere in Cheshire, next door to two of my really good friends, John and June Duxbury. And I got to know them. And ironically, I got to know Kevin Reeves, who had just signed for Man City. I think one of the very early £1 million footballers. And I used to drive Kevin to the ground on a match day at Main Road. And for me, it was unbelievable, just having this £1 million footballer in my car, driving into the players' car park. I mean, my chest was sort of twice the size that it normally is. And suddenly the fantasy kicks in that, you're a player at last, as opposed to this all-time footballing failure. And I used to have tea and toast with the players. I mean, you imagine, with the nutritionalists now, thinking, and the sports scientists, let's have a cup of tea and a slice of toast. Unless it's in pill form, nobody's going to be touching it. Exactly. So those were my early experiences. And then I used to, have the privilege of being invited by Kevin to the games. So I followed his career. Then he moved south to play for Southampton, we were still living in the north, and it was at a time when I started my own business. So I moved south in 1984 when I started the business providing financial advice for the armed forces. Met up with Kevin again at Southampton, and we used to, go out with Kevin and Trina and their friends in Southampton, then go home. And we started to build up a real love for that area. And eventually Kevin and Trina found the house that we now live in, and they were neighbours. So one day I get a phone call right out of the blue from Kevin. How would you like to come and watch Bournemouth play? The chairman would like to treat you to lunch. Christ, if I'd have known now, I'd have put the phone down. Because it was like the most expensive lunch. They say there's no such thing as a free lunch. This lunch cost me about 2 million. I could have gone anywhere on earth, fine dining for that.
See, this is what I love, and we're going to get into it in much more detail the other side of this upcoming break. But, Jeff, tell me what happened, because much further down the line, you end up buying the football club. But that was against legal advice, right?
Well, Jim, you are battering me this morning, honestly.
Said, don't do it. Don't do it.
Exactly. I mean, any credibility I had walking through this door has now gone.
No.
Jimmy, you're absolutely right, because I wouldn't even take my own financial advice now. So I get a phone call from the lawyers, and this is verbatim. Jeff, we've done the due diligence. We want you to get in your car, drive back to Manchester, and never ever think of Bournemouth again. And we're not just talking about the football club, we're talking about Bournemouth. Don't go anywhere near the place again.
A basket case?
It was a basket case. And I was hooked on the football club. I think I said it was like a Victor Kiam moment, walking through the front door of the football club. I absolutely loved what I saw. And my heart was bouncing so fast that my head had gone dormant. I absolutely made this decision with my heart and not my head. I don't think I'd be the first person to buy a football club with your heart, because if anybody, I'd like to meet somebody that's actually bought it recently with their head.
Do you know what, Jeff? Any Bournemouth fan listening to any football fan listening to this is going to buy into this, because the story has only just begun there, because you bought the club. And thereafter, an amazing story develops. And Jeff, we're going to hear more of it after this short break. It's great to have you on board. We're live on talkSPORT this Tuesday lunchtime. It is Tuesday lunchtime. It's Jim White, Alex Crook and Steve Bruce. We're joined at this lunchtime by former Bournemouth chairman Jeff Mostyn, who is in studio with us and proven to be a very popular guest, I can tell by the huge number of messages that are coming in. We're not done yet, I can tell you. This is all ahead of the publication of Jeff's new book, which is out this week, The Chairman. And Jeff Mostyn is telling us about his massive involvement, although Jeff wouldn't admit that, on what has taken Bournemouth from kind of there to there. It's a hell of a story, and we're getting into the guts of it now. Jeff, 2008, a significant year for the football club. Sadly, administration in February, but the appointment in December of a 31-year-old Eddie Howe, who had previously been a player at the club and was a fan's favourite. Nonetheless, was this something of a punt on your part?
It definitely was, a punt on behalf of the club. And in fairness, the brains behind this was Adam Murray. So, I never, ever would take, a claim for something that wasn't directly attributable to me. You're part of the group. But, it was Adam that saw this. We needed an...
Adam was a fellow director.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
So we needed an experienced manager, Steve. But we couldn't afford... Well, we definitely couldn't afford Steve.
I'm very, very cheap these days, I have to tell you, Jeff.
We'll hire you now, just the bus fare, not even the train fare.
He's not good, but he's cheap and punctual.
Yeah, exactly. So, you look at what are the alternatives. You're in administration, you're minus, 10 points one season, minus 17 points the next, 27 points deducted. And suddenly you've got a young Eddie Howe who had met with Kevin because Kevin was with Rob Newman, who was his assistant manager. Eddie was looking after the youth team, what few we had, players there. And we just thought, what Eddie has got that nobody else has got. He's got the fans behind him. He would have the players behind him. He's been at the club since he was 6 or 7. Cut him in half. He's Bournemouth through and through, and we didn't have to pay him much. So
that's a key part.
And that was the crucial thing. So of course it's a punt, but when you're literally in a position where there is no hope, any appointment just with a modicum of sense, which Eddie was, is going to give you a greater chance of survival.
Jeff, 2008-9 League Two season, 17-point deduction. But Eddie oversaw the Great Escape. Yeah. And this was a sliding doors moment, wasn't it?
Oh, my God. You've just used, literally, I love that phrase, sliding door moments in life. Not just in football, but life in general. You make decisions, that literally are balanced on a fine line. And Eddie, and along with Jason, it was an absolute miracle. And, to get within 15 minutes, you think we were 15 minutes away from, I think, oblivion, because the club had no money. We had to retain our position in the Football League. And we would have been, had it been resurrected, whatever the club would have been called, AFC Bournemouth 2009 or 2010, you would have been 7 or 8 rungs down the ladder with no income whatsoever.
Oblivion, as you say.
Absolute oblivion. And then, of course, Steve Fletcher pops up with 15 minutes to go against Grimsby. Miss hits. No, sorry, Steve. Scores probably the most important goal in the football club's history, because you have to compartmentalise where we were then to where we are now. And now would never have happened without that goal, retaining our position in the Football League.
And you told Eddie Howe that, didn't you? Or the board told Eddie Howe, look, if you don't keep this club in the Football League, we are going to go bust. There will be no more AFC Bournemouth. No pressure for Steve.
No pressure on the young manager. Not only is he cheap, but he's taking on the biggest challenge of his life, probably.
It's a heck of a story, Steve. It's a
great story in the starting of Eddie. And I'm going to say this publicly now, and I think people have heard it before. When Amanda Staveley asked me, when I was leaving Newcastle, who I would recommend, I recommended Steven Gerrard and Eddie Howe, because I do think he's a very, very talented, and has got to be the next England manager, surely. He's a very, very talented lad, and he's gone on to prove it at Newcastle. Not that he had anything to prove.
What specifically was it about Eddie, Steve?
I just think he's, he's very, very thorough in what he does. He has a really great approach to it. his teams are always up and at you, which I enjoy watching him at the time. If you see, he always has, pace in his team in a wide area. He's just a very, very talented human being, and he's likable.
Yes,
he's a very humble hero.
Yeah, he's you don't see him mouthing off or anything like that. You just what you see is what you get. A very, very, very good human being as well.
And I think he's someone who's driven as well. I know this because he told me. He's driven by the fact his own playing career was
blighted by injury, wasn't it?
You talk about sliding doors moment. They signed 2 players from Bournemouth, Richard Hughes and Eddie Howe, and I think the one they really wanted was Eddie Howe, to be honest, and he was the one that Harry Redknapp said would go on and have a Premier League career. He got injured on his debut, very serious knee injury, came back, injured his knee again, did go back to Bournemouth, but he was never quite the same player.
Probably why he went into coaching
absolutely
as young as he did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeff, let's get back to Bournemouth. Tell me about this fella, Maxime Demon.
Yes.
I think I was down there one day and you and I were together and I met him.
Yeah.
He wasn't for talking very much, was he?
No, I mean, Maxime's very, very private. And I suppose, again, these are all sliding door moments because if you look at the board at that time, there was myself as chairman, there was Maxime Demmin, and also Neil Blake as our chief executive and part of the inner sanctum. And had we all been the same characters, you would have probably thought that Maxime would have, decided, look, I own the football club now, I'm going to be the chairman. But Maxime was very happy, thank God, to sort of bless me with the role to continue as chairman after I sold him, my part of the football club. And, we just had the most amazing relationship.
He was Russian-born,
He was Russian-born.
He bought 50%.
He bought 50% initially. That was my 50%. And then he bought Eddie Mitchell's 50%. So when Eddie and I brought the club out of administration, that was again with Adam Murray and Steve Sly, Eddie insisted upon having a 1% option on 1% of my shares. And I can understand why. Look, I'd done my time. I bought the football club. In your words, it was a hell of a mess. I think they were more severe than that, but it was. And I don't want to get too hot-headed here and call it what it was.
Yeah.
But it was a mess. And Eddie, I had approached Eddie earlier to come into the club, and he said, with all the debt, the answer's no. If the club goes into administration and comes out the other side, I'd be interested. And I can understand that. He was wearing his head, not his heart. So he insisted on 1% of mine. And I thought, in for a penny, in for a pound. Look, it's better to have 50% of something than previously having 100% of nothing. And he exercised that option. So Maxim bought his shares. Then that was in 2011. And then I'll never forget it, 17th of September, see, I nearly forgot it. So 17th of September 2013, he bought Eddie Mitchell out. And immediately I get a phone call from Maxim, who he said, morning, Jeff. He said, I'm having a board meeting with Eddie Howe, Jason Tyndall and Neil Blake. And my first words were, hang on a moment, I'm vice chairman of the club, which I was then because I stepped down and Eddie Mitchell became chairman. How come he said, Jeff, I am talking, you're listening. So when somebody of Russian origin said, so immediately I adopted God's greatest gift, which was 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I'm now listening. And he said, congratulations, you are the new chairman of the football club. That was the day that he got 100%. And he said, I learned 2 words from Eddie Howe, shoe-in.
Shoe-in.
Yeah,
I love it.
That was it. And I was blessed with becoming the chairman of the football club again. And I had no idea in my wildest dreams what was about to unfold.
I mean, how soon after that did you get to the Premier League?
6 years.
6 years.
Yes, so it was our 2014-15. We were promoted to the Premier League, having been effectively a car crash, minus 17 points in 2008-9. It was just...
What about that, Steve? What
about
that?
It's an incredible situation. And also since then as well, since what's gone on after that too, it's been quite remarkable.
We're going to bring it right up to date. We'll carry on with the story with Jeff Mawson, and it's a fascinating one after this short break. 12:30 this Tuesday lunchtime.
Let's be honest, we've all found ourselves raging at a referee's decision at some stage. Something like this?
That is an absolutely shocking decision.
They've got a case in that it was a bad decision.
It's such a poor decision.
Yeah, I think he's just made a bad decision in that instance.
But what does it take to get to the very top level of football refereeing? You can apply to become a referee through your local county FA from as soon as your 14th birthday. After spending several hours either in the classroom or on the pitch, they'll grant you level 7 status, which allows you to officiate amateur games. Then you'll work your way through the ranks of amateur football, not reaching the National League until level 2. It's a long process, bearing in mind every level from 7 upwards takes an average of a year. Also, there's no specific number of games you have to ref or hours you have to log before moving on up. You simply just have to be good enough. Once you're level 2 and have enough experience at a National League level, you can apply to the EFL to become a level 1 referee. Then it's on you to get enough experience to climb through the ranks and eventually become a Premier League referee. In total, there are 37,000 registered referees across England, but the PGMOL has only deemed 21 good enough to officiate games in the top flight. So if you want to make it to the top, there's less than a 1 in 1,000 chance of doing it, and it'll take you a decade to get there.
It is now officially Tuesday lunchtime. This is Tuesday, October the 28th. Calm down, Steve Bruce. It's Jim White, Alex Crook and Steve Bruce, and we are live on talkSPORT. I will never tell you to calm down. You can say what you like at any time, Mr. Bruce.
I interfered with you, sorry.
Not at all. Not at all. You're
I didn't mean that literally either. Sorry.
You can say and do whatever you fancy. This studio belongs to everybody, and I'm delighted to say 3 has become 4 this Tuesday lunchtime, because the former Bournemouth chairman Jeff Mostyn is in studio with us ahead of the publication of his new book, The Chairman, which comes out later this week, and it's an absolute must. Anyone who's into football wants to get a hold of this, because it's about the rise and rise and rise of Bournemouth, and what a story it is. And Alex, to my right here, has more than many occasions covered Bournemouth in his travels with talkSPORT, both home and away, so he knows exactly where we're coming from. In fact, Alex has interviewed the man we're about to talk about next. Jeff, in the time we have left, we want to bring it right up to date. Bill Foley, the American businessman who's not short of a few dollars or two. He came onto the scene, I think in 2022, and Alex has interviewed him. In fact, before we hear from Jeff, let's hear from Bill Foley, because Bill has been talking to Alex earlier about his ambitions for the football club.
I know we'll be there. I know we'll be in the top 5 at some time in the future. We're doing well, and we just have to win games now, don't we? If we win games, we'll be everyone will be happy. It'll be wonderful for Bournemouth and the fans to play in Europe. I mean, they've never done it before. I just think it would be such an achievement and an accomplishment, and it's so good for the fans, frankly. My job is to really make sure we have an environment that attracts good players, and is a situation those players want to stay. They don't want to move on. Because we can compete salary-wise with just about anybody.
I mean, considering where you were, Jeff, and I know you're a bit open-mouthed at that final one. We can compete salary-wise with anyone. I'm not sure about that, Bill, but anyway, it was a good line. administration, points deduction, coming from down there to here, are Bournemouth really a European club in waiting?
Well, I think at the moment you have to say the answer is yes. Such a calm, reassuring manner. You know, it wasn't delivered with, you know, the usual passionate that, you know, we are going to be Europe, what may. It was a very made statement, and I think it summed up Bill and the new administration, if you like, that Fravola, who is president of the business of the football, doing an amazing job running the business. I assume Thiago, you know, our director of sport, football. We have so much Simon Francis, people directors. You know, I think we've got more directors. We actually had support when I bought the football club in 2000. What would the EFL impose? 17 points on a club that was struggling financially to add even greater pain to the club.
Wasn't it?
You know, exactly, especially as we hadn't with the most incredible manager. You know, I just think to be blessed with Eddie Howe, you know, for so long, and all the managers that followed Eddie, and then suddenly to have Andoni almost come out of the woodwork, but Richard Hughes had spotted, you know, Andoni, and he again just personifies this calm approach. You know, let's take one match at a time. I know it's a managerial cliche, and, you know, Steve will know that, you know, far better than me, but it's a fact, isn't it?
It's a heck of a story.
You know,
oh, it's a great story.
I mean, did you know much about it?
No, we didn't. And
he came from Rayo Vallecano.
If I remember rightly, he didn't get off to the best of starts, did he? He didn't get off to the best of starts.
9 matches without a win.
Well, usually now that gets you the sack.
Yeah.
So I've just experienced it, you know.
Yeah, sorry, Steve.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, in this modern world, the way it is now, you know, 9-10 games. But thankfully, he's shown what he is, and you can only just watch his teams.
Yeah.
And like what Alex just said, you know, for Bournemouth to be selling players, no disrespect to Paris Saint-Germain and Real Madrid. I mean, come on, that just shows you where the club's got to and what it's become. It's amazing story.
No, and also, he came from Rayo Vallecano, not one of the big ones in Spain either. Alex.
No, but as Jeff said, that's what Richard Hughes is very good at. You know, not many of us knew too much about Arne Slot before he went to Liverpool and he wins the title in his first season. Yes, he's having a difficult run at the moment, but take nothing away from what they did last year. Just on what Bill Foley was saying there about he wants to make it a club where players want to put down roots. That's the next challenge, isn't it? Because I mentioned the players they lost in the summer. They could have lost Antoine Semenyo as well. I covered this story that he met with Manchester United, he met with Tottenham, decided in the end he was going to sign a new contract. We've now reported on talkSPORT there is a release clause in that contract. I guess the big question, Steve, is if he keeps playing as he is, I think he's second only to Erling Haaland in terms of goal involvement this season. How do they keep him?
Well, that is always the smaller club syndrome to when the big clubs come calling. And if somebody like Real Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain are going to come and buy your players, then unfortunately a player, you've got to take the money aside away now, because I'm sure Bournemouth pay well. We've just heard the owner say that he does. And I know they do because I bought Callum Wilson from you a long time ago. And so it becomes then, do I want to win trophies? And then is the big problem that any smaller club has. If a Paris Saint-Germain or Real Madrid or Man United come calling, then unfortunately it looks a little bit inevitable. It's very difficult. And I think you understand that at a club like, if I'm the manager of Bournemouth or Hull, for example, or whatever, if, you know, Wigan, when I was there, you know, Antonio Valencia went to Man U, how could you stop him? You have to say you maximise the price for him, got a good deal for him, wish him the best of luck, because, you know, as I said, a player will always be driven by trying to win something.
Jeff, do you worry about the gap that does exist between the elite, the so-called elite in the Premier League, and the rest?
Well, inevitably you worry about it, but there's not much you can do about that commercially. And I think that to balance the argument that we've just had about giving the impression that Bournemouth could be perceived as a selling club, I think that when you look at traditional selling clubs, you know, they are literally selling to keep the club alive, and they are not reinvesting in the pitch or players on the pitch. That is not the case, most definitely, with Bournemouth. And I can only say this from my own perception, just for the avoidance of doubt. I'm not part of the inner sanctum now, so I'm not speaking, you know, as a member of the board or on behalf of Bournemouth. I think it's fair, all the glory needs to go with the people that are delivering this, and that's not me at the moment. But, my heart is still with the football club. But I think what you have to look at is we were the smallest club ever to grace the Premier League, we have 10,500 people compared to 76,000. So somewhere along the line, you need to balance the economics of the lack of commercial income to make sure that you still are attracting the right players. Yeah. And it appears at the moment we have, again, in my humble opinion, the best, if not one of the best, recruiting teams, literally one of the best recruiting teams in world football, not just in the Premier League. It's almost this confidence of releasing your back four, knowing that we've got eyes on players that nobody else has ever heard of or can even pronounce, in some cases, to come and fill their shoes. And without that, what's going to happen is Bill is going to be reinvesting his billions that will suddenly only become millions very, very quickly. So I think we've got this incredible balance. No supporter wants to see a top player leave. But I think if you have the confidence in the recruitment team, knowing that we are building up stability in numbers,
you can live with it.
You can live with it.
Jeff, very quickly before you go, can I ask you about relegation from the Premier League and obviously Eddie Howe's departure soon after the end of that season? How painful was that when you look at all the good times you had with Eddie that you made, I think, probably a mutual decision that a parting of the ways was best for all concerned?
Oh, this is amazing. I mean, Alex, I've not looked at my watch once. I've got through 45 minutes of no emotion whatsoever. And you're just going to start triggering some of the most emotive things. Eddie is like my son. I love him dearly. I love his family, Jason and their family. We speak regularly. To give you an idea how close we are, we've got a book event in Newcastle. This is just random. Why would Jeff be going up to Waterstones in Newcastle for a book signing? Because Eddie and Jason are joining me to sign that, to join me to help promote, support me. Yeah. And that just shows, you think of Eddie and Jason in the middle of Newcastle, they could bring the city to a standstill, as Steve would. It's just...
No, they wouldn't. No, I would not.
No, it would be a standstill for the wrong reason. This is how close we are. But to answer your question, I think the inevitable was happening. Commentators and, Alex, you have far greater handle, the minutiae of what's going on in every single club. And although I said it in a jocular fashion, if I did need to know anything about Bournemouth, I wouldn't be asking Jim, I'd be asking you, what's going on in what was my own football club. But the day we were relegated was at Everton, the last game of the season, and Rosie and I were the only two directors that travelled, which was often the case then. Other directors and people were, I think, sometimes critical, but bearing in mind they lived halfway around the world. And Neil had family commitments. So Eddie and Rosie and I were there, and I didn't speak to Eddie, albeit briefly, after the match. We decided that we weren't going to stay in Liverpool, win, lose or draw. I just needed to get out of the city. And we stayed in Chester, where Rosie and I were married. And the next day, I remember absolutely verbatim the phone call. The phone rang and it was Eddie. Chairman, I just wanted to say, we had a pretty intimate phone call, metaphorically speaking, of course. And I remember there were roadworks at Stafford when I was driving to Liverpool. There were roadworks from Stafford to Knutsford. And this phone call lasted in the reverse direction from Knutsford to Stafford. And Rosie said to me, she could see my level of emotion. I'm going to get through this quickly before I think about it too much. She said that, sweetheart, you were on the phone for about 50 minutes, but you were probably only speaking for 10. Both of you were so emotional. And then she said to me, I think that might be the last phone call that you have as chairman and manager.
Wow. Jeff, listen, all that said, how are you going to feel when you hear the Champions League music at the Vitality one day?
Well, I'm not going to be like a lot of supporters these days screaming at it. I'm going to be singing
You're
it.
going to be loving it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be the culmination of what is already a miracle. It would be the greatest story ever told.
Jeff, brilliant. And you have been brilliant with us. Jeff Mostyn, the chairman, strongly recommend it, coming out this week. Jeff, thank you so much.
It's been an absolute honour, a privilege. I feel so humble sitting next to your guest today, and of course to you, Jim. Forever grateful.
Jeff, you're always welcome. With that, we're heading towards 1 o'clock. It's been quite an old show, hasn't it, today? Loving it, loving it. Stay with us. We're back after this. Now then, it's our biggest competition yet. We're giving you the chance to play to win up to £100,000. talkSPORT's biggest cash prize ever. £100,000 completely tax-free. The excitement doesn't stop there. You'll be coming into the talkSPORT studios on Thursday, the 13th of November. And there and then you'll play for that life-changing cash prize. Here's how you can do it.
18 plus UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, text the word cash to 83338 and you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission, or you can enter for free by calling 0330 880 3338. All entries must be received by the 6th of November at 4 p.m. This is a TalkSPORT limited promotion run on TalkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
I've got to say, we are getting an enormous reaction from not just Bournemouth fans, but fans of every football club, it seems, all around the country, reacting to the chat we've just had here in studio with the former Bournemouth chairman, Jeff Mostyn. It really is a rags to riches story. And Alex, you've been a big part of that. You covered it when the bad times were very much being experienced by those in that part of the world. But now, I mean, the opportunities are endless if you're a Bournemouth fan.
It's an incredible rise that they've had, and I guess we've spoken a lot about Sheffield Wednesday in the last week or so in particular. And if they're looking for inspiration to what can happen from dark times, then maybe they only need to look at the Vitality Stadium. And historically, and no disrespect to Bournemouth, Sheffield Wednesday, a much bigger club than them.
I had 3 great months there, and I have to say, what an absolutely amazing football club it is. I mean, I read the other day that as soon as the chairman's gone, they're back into the club shop. They spent, 75,000 quid on the shirts. There's 28,000 at the game on Saturday. It's a remarkable football club, and I genuinely hope that somebody takes it over and takes that forward, because that is a huge football club.
They need their own Maxim Devin and Bill Foley, don't they?
Yeah, because let's be right, I think the stadium was built in 66, and I don't think much has happened to it, and the training ground needs a bit of an uplift. But you only have to hear stories like this and hear that it is achievable. The Brentford story is exactly the same. Brighton's another one. Yes. Brighton were homeless for years, and under Mickey Adams and Dean White, was it? And homeless for years, and all of a sudden, they had a vision to come forward with it. Not easy, and you need deep pockets these days, but...
The phrase in football that we always hear is you never know. You never know what the future holds. This time yesterday, Steve, we came off air here on the 17th floor of the news building. I went in to have a cup of coffee with Martin O'Neill and Martin Keown after we did that, and we had a chat. Martin O'Neill had no idea what was about to happen to him for the rest of the afternoon. A call from Dermot Desmond, Brendan Rodgers exited stage left, and Martin, we carry on as interim boss at the football club. Martin is now in Glasgow, having spoken to this show exclusively this morning before he flew there. Steve, it begs the question, you never know. Is there another job for you?
I would never say I never know, but something like that just happens. It was a bit like me at Blackpool a year ago, where David Downs and Dean Hughes, who I'd worked with before, asked me to go meet the owner, and I really enjoyed it. I'm just disappointed that results didn't go our way. It didn't go our way at the start of a season, and it turned out the way it did, because I really genuinely wish them well. So I'm never going to say never, but I do believe, a bit like if you're put in a situation like Martin's just found it, very difficult to say no. And know Martin the way I do, I think he'll relish the challenge of it.
Yeah.
Me personally, whether it happens again, I ain't so sure.
Do you think there's a role for people like you at board level, not necessarily a director of football, but a mentor almost to young managers? Because we were talking before we came on air about the churn in the EFL, which maybe doesn't get the headline.
I found it very, very difficult to start with when I was young. Hence the situation I found myself in with Simon. If I had somebody older with grey hair, which I did at Wigan, I found John Benson when I went to Wigan, and he steered me through.
Yeah.
Without him, and I always thought, I'm always going to get... Until I got grey hair, I need somebody with grey hair to just guide me through. And his was all about, John, was, Steve, forget about whether the coffee's nice enough or whether the training ground's good enough. Win on a Saturday and keep all your energy for
the bottom line.
Because that's the bottom line. Win on a Saturday, you can do whatever you want.
Exactly. The problem at Palace that you had was you never knew what colour of hair Simon would have. When
he had streaks and blonde hair at the time.
Oh, what a mullet. Steve, wonderful. And thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And thanks for your company.
Top man, thank you. Mr. Crook, as always, thanking you.
Always a pleasure.
Back tomorrow at 10. In the meantime, Martin O'Neill in position in Glasgow. Wow, how quickly things can change in football.